you? If you guys were in Cincinnati and you lived there, you would still be wearing Chiefs stuff. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You got to represent.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I got a big win yesterday.
Also, I would never live in Cincinnati.
Okay.
I'm just going to make it very clear. Of many of the cities in which I could choose or be forced to live,
Kings Island,
Cincinnati is never going to be it. I'm not doing it. I'll live somewhere else. I don't know where, but I'll live somewhere else. It's not going to be Cincinnati. That I'm pretty confident.
I feel like you were wearing it today as well because you watched, like we all did, one of, if not the worst performance in the Mahomes Andy Reid era. I mean, Cody, it was the perfect storm of crappy, curse word I can't use, football that we've seen in a long time. Everything. Just last week we had a conversation about them having the 7th most turnovers in football, and I think I may even uttered the phrase, their margin for error when they turn it over like 2 or 3 times is just greater than any other team. And I said, when they turn over 2 or 3, they can still win.
How about 5?
5? No, it turns out 5 turnovers.
You think that might be too many?
It turns out that we can sometimes simplify things a little bit, and it just so happens, even if you're playing a team that you have destroyed and owned for 16 straight games, that if you on the road turn it over 5 times, you might not win the football game. And that's exactly what happened. And even with 4 turnovers in the game, they still were in position down 5 to get the ball. And then McCole Hardman muffs the punt, should have just got out of the way. I don't want you fair catching it at the 5 anyway. So I don't know what the hell he was doing. He owned it.
Do the Chiefs have a way higher percentage of people fielding the ball inside the 10? Is that a Dave Tobe strategy point? Because if so, I drop it. I just maybe stop teaching that and instead do what everyone else does. When it's inside the 10, walk away. Walk away. There's no tangible difference between you catching the ball at the damn 5-yard line or going down to the 2.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a Tobe thing, if that's just the league is adjusted based off of punters in the league. Not like typically, I mean, the old school thing was always what? Like if you were always taught if your foot is on the 10-yard line or whatever, like if you step back, like you just let it go, right? Wasn't that the whole like that's
Yes.
always been? I don't know if that's just one of those old school things that is adjusted and we've got to train ourselves to not think that's the automatic. But yeah, in that case, I don't even want you catching the ball or returning it, fair catch, whatever in that scenario. See if it goes in, let it bounce. If it goes in the end zone, if not, worst thing, you get it at the 3 instead of the 5. Like,
oh, no.
Or whatever. Yeah. So that is one of many, many things. McCole fumble. Rashee Rice had a bad drop. Mahomes, of course, forced one early in the game to Travis Kelce. And then
Sky looked like he forgot how his arms worked on a ball thrown towards him in the end zone. His arms moved as if he'd never moved them together at the same time before on that play.
It was a perfect pass to Sky Moore. At that point, it still would have needed another score after that. But MVS had the fumble. The red zone struggles. That was the story after the last game 2 weeks ago in the win. They won, but that was the story. They're now, 1 for 9 in the red zone in terms of scoring touchdowns against the Denver Broncos. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes in a second. Like that's what's more alarming than anything else. Like, do I suddenly think they're going to start turning the ball over 5 times a game, 4 times? No, but they're top 5 in turnovers now easily in the NFL.
We discussed this before. I think it was Friday, maybe it was Thursday's show. If you were listening to this show, my exact comment was, yeah, I mean, they're making it do, but I said it's officially on the watch list of problems we have to monitor because why wouldn't I do it? They were already top 11, as we had pointed out, or top 7 in the league, as it had sat right then. And it was like, well, yeah, I have to be a little bit concerned that the Chiefs are turning the ball over at the rate at which they are. The thing I had pointed out is that, well, they're taking it away a little bit, so, it'll probably be okay. Now the giveaways are out of control. And look, it's one massively bad game, and I do still think in the overall pantheon of things, they'll be better at it. They are now second worst in the NFL in giveaways.
5 turnovers will do that,
Second worst. I had to look it up. The only team above them is the Cleveland Browns. The other teams to join them there are the Raiders and the Vikings and the Falcons and the Bears and the Colts. I mean, these are just bad teams. Like some of them, at least the Vikings, that was the thing we were picking on them early part of the season, which was, hey, maybe stop giving the ball away and you be competitive in this. They just kept giving it away. Honestly, from top to bottom, it was just a hideous performance. Like they didn't do anything well. didn't give Pacheco the ball enough. They were down 5 a huge majority of this game and still stopped running the ball.
7 touches or so, I believe, is all Pacheco had.
Just as a quick reminder, the Denver Broncos have the worst rated run defense in the NFL going into that game. Only gave Pacheco the ball 7 times. Mahomes was making mistakes. The offensive line had one of their worst games. Andy got conservative again. No red zone offense. I mean, there's no glowing thing I can say about this game. And yet I'm here to tell you, if you want to come on this show and be like, they're buried, it's over, no chance at a Super Bowl, well, then you're an idiot. Like, no offense.
Yeah.
I had to, and I will, don't make me, please. I'm begging. If you're the person on Twitter who's added me 7,000 times, or you're the person sending out these insane things that are like, they have no hope, this team has no heart, they're soft. If you send all that out, please do not make me spend my week digging through tweets that I am confident you sent of identical nature.
Yeah. Yep.
Text you sent of identical nature last year telling me this team had no chance to win anything when they eventually went on to win the Super Bowl. Because this is exactly how I think Chiefs fans felt about middle of the year last year, when they were also 6-2 on their way to a Super Bowl title. This game sucked. They were terrible, but it does not mean that somehow the world isn't ahead of them.
No, it was a complete cluster, no doubt, and it puts more and more pressure on you now, though. When we had talked about the wiggle room that you have based off of finding ways to win the last couple weeks, even though you were struggling in certain areas. But, you know, you had Philadelphia and Miami and Buffalo and some of these teams on the horizon. Well, now your margin of error in those particular games has dwindled in terms of the number 1 seed conversation. But you do wake up today, and Cody, guess what? They are the number 1 seed still in the AFC. The one thing we had said, the nice thing other than week 1 to the Detroit Lions, which has turned out to be right now an NFC North leading Detroit Lions team, and they play tonight on Monday night against the Raiders, but that you had been able to have mistakes and overcome them. You can't overcome 5 turnovers. I don't care who the hell you are in the NFL and college football, and it doesn't matter.
They almost overcame 3 or 4, but 5 was definitely the nail.
Yeah, 5 is 1 or 2 too many in this case for this team. We found the mark.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, Buffalo, they had lost to the Jets and the Patriots, and the Dolphins, of course, had a bad loss earlier this season.
Theirs are against winning teams, at least.
Sure.
They're the only one where at least you'd be like, it's 2 winning teams. It was Buffalo and Philly.
Right. You know, the 49ers have now lost 3 in a row. Philadelphia had, quote-unquote, a bad loss early. Well, my point being is the overarching view of what this season can be for the Chiefs doesn't change off of one game. We'll talk about the trade deadline here in 20 minutes. Don't worry. And I'm sure most people in Kansas City are sitting there saying they have to go trade for a wide receiver, and it's hard to blame anybody with that thought process. But we'll talk about how realistic that may or may not be by tomorrow afternoon. But Cody, it was just a week ago that they had 500 yards and 40 yards passing from their quarterback and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And
the problem is we've seen more games that look like this one.
We have.
Not the turnovers, but just the poor offensive play, bad red zone issues, inability to move the ball, lack of confidence in the wide receivers. We've seen way more games like that this season than the other. Look, I think it's a bit misleading. I saw the stat floating around that the Chiefs have 5 games this year of 23 points or less. They had 3, a couple of, like, they've never had more than 3 in a calendar year, 4 in a calendar year, and that one came in 2021 when it came in the year that he was hurt and they also won the Super Bowl. It's so hard with this team for me to panic about an offense, even if I have questions about the wide receivers. You'd be insane to not come on any kind of show and be like, their wide receivers are not very good. We've been talking about that all year.
Statement. We've been talking about the wide receiver room all year. Now, this is what Patrick Mahomes said. I think this is the part that is this part, what he's about to say is the most concerning. Is like, how long does it take to figure this out? Can it be figured out with the wide receivers? And does that involve having to go trade something? Patrick Mahomes spoke about what the Broncos in particular, you know, everybody pays attention to everybody watches film, and the Broncos in the 2 performances this year defensively have given the Chiefs offensive fits. And this is what Mahomes had to say about that.
Knowing that teams are going to replicate it and they're going to do their different versions of it and try to find answers for that. That's the biggest thing. I mean, obviously they've seen 2 out of the last 3 weeks the Broncos be able to kind of stifle our offense, if that's the right word, and really just kind of get after us as far as making us execute all the way down the field. And so I'm sure other teams in the league are going to watch that, and we have to prove that we have answers for that, and that'll be something that I'll go back to the film and really try to pay attention to.
That part, like if to me, more than just the the turnovers and everything. What's concerning is hearing that. Not that I don't think they're going to try to figure out, of course, how they can get teams out, but that the Dolphins and the Eagles and the Bills, until the Chiefs can show that somebody else is capable of stepping up consistently, and I think trust is a huge part of all this. I know, Patrick Mahomes is going to continue to go to...
Bad day for trusting the wide receivers.
He's going to continue to go to bat for guys that make mistakes, right? MVS and Sky Moore. He's not going to call them out, nor should he. That'd be a bad move publicly. But I think there's a serious lack of trust issue right now in the wide receiver room from your quarterback. And who can blame him? Who can blame him when you have a perfect pass that is going through the hands of wide receiver? And I saw a lot of, well, it's 4th and 2, just check it down for 5. Guys, 95% of wide receivers in the league should catch that ball. That, if you want to say, well, then Sky Moore shouldn't be on the field as much, you're not going to hear me argue. His snaps should not be as much as they are. But saying that, they shouldn't have gone for the open touchdown pass and just dumped it off. Since when did we say that about Patrick Mahomes? You know what I mean? So that part's crazy.
Earlier this year on a 4th and inches, threw a ball 30 yards down the field for a touchdown to Travis Kelce in the end zone, and nobody said it.
The bigger problem is, all right, should the snaps continue to decrease for someone like Sky Moore? And then if you're going to say that, well, then whose can increase? If you're going to say Rashee Rice, his snaps are already increasing. Somebody like who else? Who else is the answer to that? That's the problem that they're in. And we can mention spreading the ball around and everything like that, Cody. But at some point, there is some truth that if you're running 6 or 7 wide receivers out there, it means you don't have 3 that you actually trust.
I guess that's like my big question for the offense is, will it hit its stride by week 17? I'm not going to put some pressure on the offense to solve all of their problems by week 8. I think by now we know where their issues lie. And what you're asking is there a wide receiver? I believe, a second wide receiver, I believe that by week 17 they can kind of count on. Because right now, although Justin Watson returned and he immediately throws him the ball again, we keep saying how it needs to not be Justin Watson, which is in a way true, but maybe not. Maybe the simple solution to this entire thing, and this question is, throw it all the time to Rashee Rice and Justin Watson. I know that sounds, if I had pitched that before the season, you would have not liked that working theory. But it is clearly the 2 wide receivers he trusts the most, are the most productive, that's not even arguable anymore, and the guys whose growth is at least somewhat plausible. Like Rashee Rice's growth from now, week 8, a rookie who they still only trust to run. Like, think about this from a number 1 wide receiver perspective. In the times Tyreek Hill was a number 1 wide receiver, or Juju Smith-Schuster, or any of these guys, they were running 80%, 70% of the offensive snaps. Rashee Rice led the team yesterday and still only got to 60%. So there is room for more play for him as the season goes on, but they want to be able to trust him. The biggest thing for me now is, I know for a fact almost, I know we're going to talk about Sky Moore, I know for a fact almost, by week 17, the answer is not going to be Sky Moore, and it's not going to be Kadarius Toney. It's just not. Like, what? Give me one iota of evidence that either of those players is going to be the answer to your wide receiver woes 9 weeks from now. I don't think so. Nobody can prove that to me. Noah Gray's gone quiet. Remember, he had the early kind of start to the season. You should never. Blake Bell needs to enter the Clyde Edwards-Helaire list of just don't throw him the football under really any circumstance. So, yeah, I still think they'll get better offensively. That might be because I believe in the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and I've seen them solve these midseason problems, but still. This
feels like, to me, though, a post-bye week problem that if they're going to fix it, it's going to have to be after the bye week, and so...
Probably. They're going to have to get through Miami.
Yeah. Find a way to get through Miami. And, the NFL is bizarre and weird. We've all watched it enough, and we've all been fans of the league and seen the Chiefs long enough to know that just because you don't score a touchdown, which is remarkable, right? Just because you don't score a touchdown against the Denver Broncos does not mean that you're not going to be able to score against the Dolphins. I know, if it was that simple, we would all be rich, right? I've loved the notion that, because they played the way they played against the Broncos, that there's no way they could go and beat the Dolphins. You know how many times in the league we have seen a team look like complete ass, like the Chiefs did on Sunday, and then go and play well the next week? It does happen all the time in the NFL. So,
pretty consistent.
As frustrated as I am today, and everybody is in Chiefs Kingdom, would it stun you if on Sunday against the Dolphins, not that they may lose, but that they score 30 points? No. By the way, they're going to probably have to. That's why I think there's frustration, is because everybody recognizes what the Dolphins are offensively. The good news is your defense still gives you a chance to win every single week. And that happened again yesterday, even with 5 turnovers, Cody. This defense still gave the Chiefs multiple opportunities to win the game.
Although, in fairness, Miami hasn't scored 33 times this year,
Okay.
which is a bit surprising.
All right.
That number's a little higher than I thought it would have been. One was against Buffalo when they got beat 48-20. One was against the Patriots, a game they won 24-17, and then Philly when they lost 31-17. And that's the whole other part about this. Like you'd mentioned the number of points scored. We all understand, right, that the offense might have scored just as many points as the Chiefs' offense might have been just as responsible for the number of points scored against the Chiefs' defense than the actual Chiefs' defense. I mean, they had 24 points. They had 3 scoring drives that were less than 50 yards in length.
Essentially, what, 17 points off of turnovers? Off
Yes.
the 5 turnovers yesterday. I think
Russell Wilson finished with 112 passing yards.
I think most people. I don't think people are really blaming the defense.
114, sorry.
I don't think anybody's really blaming the defense. I think everybody recognizes the problem with this football team right now is solely the offense. That's who should be getting the brunt of the frustration this week heading into Germany when the team leaves on Thursday. It's all in the offense. In a weird way, that's why I do think the offense will perform against Miami. We'll have all week to talk about the Dolphins game, but you want to talk about like focusing in and understand that everybody thinks you suck right this second, even though they're still a top 10 offense, by the way. But that stuff, that's what's going on. I don't think anybody's worried about the defense. We'll talk about the depth at linebacker. That's concerning with some injuries. But overall, this wasn't the defense's problem. They were set up with short fields over and over, and your offense/special teams committed 5 freaking turnovers. Somehow they were only down 14-9 at halftime. It was a 5-point game. Be honest for a second. At halftime, didn't you think the Chiefs? All right. As bad as they played, 3 turnovers. It was halftime down 14-9.
I thought they'd win.
I thought the Chiefs were going to come back and
I
win,
didn't
right?
think they were going to lose until McCole Hardman fumbled that punt inside the 5. It took me that long before I'm like, yeah, it's done. We're done here. It took me that long. By the way, they're not technically a top 10 offense anymore.
They just fall out?
12th.
They just fall out? Okay.
12th in points per game
Okay.
after that performance,
There it is.
23.4. I mean, I said if they finished outside the top 5, it was kind of embarrassing. If they finished outside of a top 10 offense, a lot of this is then they're like, I think it's fairly safe to say that they had a plan going into the offseason that Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney were going to take leaps, and then that was their plan at wide receiver, and that plan isn't working, right? Maybe that means, and we'll talk about the trade deadline in a little bit, but yeah, the other part of this, because like I said the same thing on the roundtable and on this show, because I've had a million people, because of course they're paying Tyreek this week. He already has 1,014 yards this season, which is only 12 yards less than MVS, Rashee Rice, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and Justin Watson combined. Okay? He is pretty much equal to the top 5 wide receivers for the Chiefs combined in receiving yardage.
Yeah. No,
I would never go back and reverse that trade because of the defense.
Yeah, you mentioned points per game. Just last week, just last week we mentioned the Aaron Schatz statistic that said the Chiefs were one of the only teams through weeks
From DVOA,
to still be in top 5 at all 3 phases. They're still top 5, barely, but top 5 in offense, defense, and special teams. So frustration, absolutely. Is this Dolphins game going to tell us even more about correction? Sure. I think, unfortunately, it's going to take into the bye week to fix any of this. But is there a fix that they can do by tomorrow's trade deadline? We'll get to that in about 10 minutes or so. After what occurred yesterday, I get why everybody's thought process is that, well, they got to go find someone because of what we just saw yesterday, man.
Miami does currently have the 25th ranked defense, although Denver has the 29th ranked defense, and we saw how that went. I still can't believe you'd mentioned just somebody had sent the text and be like, if your quarterback has a flu and you're just not playing well in the game and everything's off. This is one of those games, like I very rarely get upset with Andy anymore on the why didn't you run the ball? What the hell were you doing not handing the ball to Pacheco more? There's absolutely no excuse based on the way that game was played to not just give Isaiah Pacheco the ball more. Wide receivers can't get open, can't catch anything.
8
Worse
carries,
run defense.
8 carries, 40 yards. I'm bad at math. That's a 5-yard per carry average, and you only got 8 carries. What?
And not a 30-point effort for Denver, right? They got some of those points late because of the massive amounts of turnovers that continued to happen when you rolled back. Oh, man. The red zone, I am so sick of this particular red zone offense. It's been an issue throughout the years because, we don't like the way Andy calls inside the red zone a lot of times, but this year in particular, it's just gross, man. Nothing looks like it's ever going to work. And I don't want any more, they get inside the red zone and they just run these, what if we hand it off to Kadarius Toney on an inside run? I'm like, how about we don't? You could just not do that. I'm cool with you just giving it to Pacheco there, who's averaging 5 yards a carry against what was the league's worst run defense. You don't have to hand it to Kadarius Toney on an inside run, not even like a screen pass or a jet sweep, an inside trap run. And someone was like, "Yeah, if somebody didn't miss their block, then he's good." I'm like, "Well, but they did." Because it's probably not a play they run as much. It's just hand it to Isaiah Pacheco.
All right, coming up next, I mentioned the trade deadline. We know that's tomorrow afternoon, and after yesterday, it's probably hard to find anybody that thinks they shouldn't trade for a wide receiver. I'll tell you why I still don't think that's going to happen next.
Cody and Gold.
The facts on this show are irrelevant.
Brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. For asphalt, concrete, and parking lot maintenance, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Trusted in Kansas City since 1994. Online at GANNasphalt.com.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options that include the spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/610Bob and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL and 610 Sports Radio. 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame moneyline wager required. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is not withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
I'm Mitch Holtis, voice of the Chiefs. Everyone develops cataracts naturally as they get older. When your vision is affected by cataracts, you should see my doctor, Dr. Steven Silverstein at Silverstein Eye Centers. Dr. Silverstein is a world-renowned cataract surgeon who performs life-changing laser-assisted cataract surgery with premium lens implants to correct your vision up close and far away. Trust my eye doctor, Dr. Steven Silverstein, Silverstein Eye Centers, 816-358-3600 to schedule an appointment.
I'm Georgios. I'm the co-founder of Nutrafol. My hair started to thin. I took a pharmaceutical drug, but I suffered from sexual dysfunction. Having to choose between my hair and my health was not really a great choice. Nutrafol, the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. Keep growing at Nutrafol.com/man. That's Nutrafol.com/man.
These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. Paid for by Nutraceutical Wellness, Inc.
Lowe's knows pros want savings now. That's why, as an MVP's Pro Rewards member, you get volume savings on orders of $1,500 or more.
trade deadline. And we've been talking about this for a couple weeks. And I think really for a lot of people since post week 1, they wanted the Chiefs to find a way, right, to go and trade for someone. There was even an article after the week 1 game saying they should go trade for Mike Evans, right? I mean, this was stuff that's been talked about for a while. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock is the deadline. The Chiefs currently have, according to Spot Track, about $3.3 million in cap space. And if you're thinking, okay, well, can they free up more? I mean, technically, yes. If they really wanted to go down that road, someone like Travis Kelce, you could restructure and free up another $3 to $4 million. Okay, all of a sudden you're sitting at $7 million in cap space. I get why 90% of people listening today, probably, Cody, would say, well, yeah, I want them to go trade for a wide receiver by tomorrow's deadline. I can't fault that logic. I'll tell you, though, I don't think that's happening for the financial reasons. And it's one thing to add a Kadarius Toney type last year. But a guy that's going to actually make a difference right in the middle of the season in this offense, is that realistic anyway? Going out, and let me just, by the way, there's not many names available anyway.
Well, Kendrick Bourne could have been a name. He tore his ACL.
Let's just say, I'll just use Hollywood Brown again, even though I don't, we'll just use that name. Is he stepping in and learning and coming and actually helping them in the area they need help in the middle of the season? The offseason is one thing. Is he helping them in season? So I get why people want it to happen. I'm not sold that it would have the impact we're all thinking unless it's one of those really, really special guys. But spoiler, Justin Jefferson doesn't exist on the trade market. So that's my concern with it. I also just don't think they're going to do that.
I think I'd be surprised. I'm not surprised this conversation's coming up. And if I were the Chiefs, honestly, I'd call around. I'm not saying I do nothing, because right now what we're talking about here is, for the most part, almost everything would be an upgrade. Let's just be honest. They got 2 guys like 160 yards or less. So to find a wide receiver who could get that for the final 9 games, you don't even have to go as high as Mike Evans or Justin Jefferson. Like, if you can just find an Adam Thielen type, you can find his
contract. I don't want to, dude. His contract.
I understand his contract. I'm just mentioning a mid-tier level wide receiver who might be available.
But again, we can. So you're correct. That can we find somebody else that 95% of wide receivers catch the Sky Moore touchdown there instead of dropping it? Yeah, there's probably 95% of wide receivers in the league that catch that pass that Sky Moore dropped
probably
yesterday. Yeah. But you're correct that you said like an Adam Thielen type. I don't disagree. I don't know who that guy is that's actually available, man. Like Jerry Jeudy, the Broncos just won yesterday, but Jerry Judy's a name that always comes up.
They should still trade, by the way, Denver.
They should.
That win, but
Will they trade to Kansas City, though, is a whole other question. Does Kansas City have it? Like someone like that? Sure, maybe. But there's not a ton of options on the wide receiver market.
There's not a ton, but there are, like
people are saying like Puka. Oh yeah, because the Rams are trading Puka Nacua. I mean, like,
that would be bonkers.
We got to be realistic.
You might have better luck getting Cooper Kupp than you would Puka Nacua. Yeah. Why would they trade cheap Cooper Kupp? That doesn't make any sense.
I just think they have shown us time and time again they're not going to jeopardize their future cap circumstances for an in-season trade. Like, look at the history of the in-season trades they've made. Kadarius Toney was a guy on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
And obviously now we know how that's turned out, but still at the time it was a rookie contract. When they went out and signed guys like Suggs, those were veteran waiver wire type pickups, or not waiver wire, but claims. Like, when have they in this era gone out and had the massive in-season trade?
If they haven't, if they were to make one of these moves, the most logical players that fit the price point or control or ability standpoint, the best fits, dead serious, are all in the AFC West. That's a massive problem for them. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, people who'd be on the trade market, Hunter Renfrow, all the players that would likely be on the trade market and would make sense all reside inside of their own division, which adds a whole nother challenge. But I'm here to tell you that they should look at it. They should actually try. Because honestly, it doesn't have to go full less need. Screw those picks. I'm dead serious. Screw them. You have won 2 Super Bowls in 5 years. You're going for a dynasty, and your offseason plan at wide receiver isn't working. So it's okay. Sometimes you have to admit that plan didn't go to plan and make an adjustment on the fly for a team who still currently sits as the number 1 seed in the AFC. And the only reasonable problem you can find in looking at the entire roster is wide receiver. They are, like, maybe some injuries, right? But if we just say, hey, these linebackers will come back healthy, I don't see any major problems on defense. right? I mean, I can't point to like a serious Achilles heel-like flaw. On offense, offensive line has allowed the second fewest sacks in the entire NFL. You have a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and you have a future Hall of Fame tight end. So I'm left with just wide receiver. Like, that's it. It's the one flaw. And at that point, I'd be willing to explore trades. The problem, as you've said, is the options that make sense for you are limited.
Yeah, I'm not against going out and trade for. Let me be clear. I would like them to. I just, guys, don't know if there's really a realistic option financially, number one. Another one that's not going to, I know you said screw the picks, but one that's not going to cost you an extreme pick, but also doesn't handicap you going forward, right? Like, it's one thing if it's a guy that's on an expiring contract, but I just keep going back to Adam Thielen. Like, his deal, I don't want that number on my books. It's not a great deal. And I understand people want to mention Adam Thielen, but I'm not so sure that's a good financial move for their team. So there's not this perfect solution. I understand if you're gonna make a trade, there's gonna have to be something that maybe you're unhappy with. But I don't believe yesterday suddenly is going to cause them to mortgage the future. And I know there's people that disagree with that, and they're saying, screw it, mortgage the future, do it, doesn't matter. Like, we're all desperate here. We're all reactionary after a brutal, pathetic performance yesterday. But I think you also, part of being a GM, as much as we're frustrated, right? Part of being a GM is you do have to be level-headed and recognize that you can't. Can you imagine any GM if they weren't just, after any terrible loss, you're just like, F it, trade everything? Like that, that's also a dangerous way to operate. And I know these wide receiver problems.
Although he is kind of reactionary. He's like, this offensive line stinks. Fix it all.
Well, in the
multiple draft picks, multiple things. Like he does.
Win though.
Yeah.
In the offseason.
I'm just saying he does kind of do that. He just does it at a different time.
Yeah, but in the offseason, man, like in the offseason, everybody was saying, like in the offseason, we talked about going and signing DeAndre Hopkins.
I think
in the offseason,
the price tag just got too
In the
high.
offseason, we talked about signing Odell Beckham Jr., who I think got hurt again yesterday, by the way, for the Ravens. Like we've talked about that. So in the offseason, it's one thing, you get them acclimated to your system, you do that. In season, being ultra aggressive for a trade, that would be a new move from Brett Veach if they actually did something like that. The deadline's tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We'll obviously talk more about this. We're going to hear from Andy Reid again coming up at noon today. The only place you can hear from Andy is right here on 610 Sports Radio. Before we get to the trash of the day, real quick, just to pivot, I promise this was not my idea to talk about here, so don't blame it on me being the KU guy and saying that this is all Gold just wants to talk about KU football. There was a nice win on Saturday, though, in Lawrence.
You're saying this wasn't your idea to talk about it?
Not there, not right there, not today. It was just on there. Sometimes we push it to Tuesday. I don't want people thinking, that
I do think you put it in the rundown.
I put it in the
You're
rundown.
making it sound like Drew's like, hey, we got to talk Kansas.
Oh, we put, spoiler, peel back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah,
we make a long list during the Chiefs game and among other topics, and at the bottom we put like the extra stuff. And one of the things I listed is KU upsets number 6 Oklahoma, biggest win since 08. Usually when we do that with college football, it doesn't make the show till Tuesday.
Okay. I'm just asking.
I'm just making sure. Sure everybody understands. Drew's the one who really, really wanted to talk KU football.
Oh, yeah.
He tried to get us to lead with Cincinnati, and we said, man, we can't do that.
I think if you very objectively look about it, I mean, it's one of the biggest ones in Kansas football history.
It's the biggest win since the Orange Bowl, man.
I'm dead
really
serious.
is.
It might be a top 5 most important win in their entire school's history. It's that big a win. Now, look, that's partly because Kansas's football school history ain't great, right?
The Orange Bowl was the biggest win prior to this.
Yes. And that's a bigger win and will probably remain the biggest win in Kansas football history.
Yes.
This is top 5. They'd beaten them since the mid-90s.
Yeah, 97 was the last time the Jayhawks had beat Oklahoma. And in my lifetime, it's the first time they've had a top 10 win at home, I believe. That all happened. It was a phenomenal win. They did it with their backup quarterback, Jason Bean, who for a while was heading down a path of being the guy that everybody just said could never make the big play. That's the path he was headed on because of some bad mistakes that he did make. But when it mattered most, he led them on a crucial drive, and they end up winning the game. And, yeah, it was awesome to see that and the notoriety that Lance Leipold continues to get. And they're top 25 again, even though I told you I don't like rankings. And now they've got a chance to go on a little run here, perhaps.
College football playoff rankings come out this week, the first edition that matters.
That's right, tomorrow night. That's true.
Well, I don't think
all 3 local schools, man, are rolling.
Look, K-State's got a huge one this weekend.
Texas.
They can equal the good years by right now. K-State's had the worst year out of the 3 locals, which is I don't think what any of us are going to say. And they haven't had a bad year. It's just that Missouri's having their best year since they joined the SEC, and Kansas just got one of their biggest wins ever, and we're in bowl eligible for the second time for the second year in a row for only the second time in their school's history. I did not think even with Oklahoma not playing their best football coming into it necessarily, because I had said the week before that I thought that UCF game was just the, oh, oopsie, we had the hangover against Texas game. I did not think Kansas was going to win that game.
Yeah, I thought they would cover.
Chance.
I didn't think they were going to win. I had them plus 10. And then you have the lightning delay that took 40% of the stadium out of the building, and not everybody came back. They said, this weather sucks. Just go watch and drink at a dry bar or whatever, a dry location at a bar. But that was a very, very impressive win. Obviously fired up to see big noon kickoff there, and then for them to live up to the moment like they did. That was really cool for Jason Bean. Got to give him credit. The Jalen Daniels stuff is still infuriating to me when I see reports right before the game from Brett McMurphy saying that he's suited up, he's available if needed. I don't get it.
Don't suit him up.
Yeah, if needed, they're playing number 6 Oklahoma. I guess he wasn't needed because they won with Jason Bean.
Okay, but no, that's the team you need him the most.
That stuff is nuts.
I still don't understand what's going on there, because then part of you continues to think like, I kind of start believing in the conspiracy theories that he's just resting to get himself transferred to end up at a different school. But that's not even the point of the conversation today, because of what they've got Iowa State. They're an underdog at Iowa State this weekend. They've got several more big games left, including Kansas State and all these. Like, the world is still ahead of them. Just getting to bowl eligibility, but beating Oklahoma. Part of what I love about this is I enjoy watching teams who have ditched you fail on their way out the door. I'm kind of hoping no Big 12 team makes the college football playoff, because the two most likely teams this whole damn year were Oklahoma and Texas, a year before they head off to the SEC. So good. I don't even care if you're not a Kansas fan. If you're just a Big 12 football fan, screw them. I hope they all lose on the way out the door. It's enjoyable for me to watch Kansas take down Oklahoma for the first time. They hadn't beat them since they were the Big Damn 8, pretty much. And on their way out the door, Kansas gets the dub. Fantastic. When was the next time Kansas was even going to get a shot at playing Oklahoma to end that streak?
Maybe a bowl game.
Maybe 30 years from now.
Yeah, maybe a bowl game. That's it. Instead, they get some bragging rights, obviously, on the way out the door. It was fantastic. But, yeah, that was awesome to see. The game took 5 hours because of the lightning delay and everything. But, yeah.
A normal college football game might take that. That's just a risk you have to take.
It's a lot better now, though, with the whole clock continuation after first downs.
I can't believe
thing.
there were coaches who were fighting that. I'm like, you really want to stop the clock 700 times in a football game? The rest of us don't.
It's made possessions go down, so coaches are mad about it and all that other stuff. For teams that like to go straight down the field in 2 minutes and all that stuff, it's...
Sorry. We don't want to watch 5.5-hour football games. Maybe that's your life, but I got other stuff going on a Saturday.
Halftime is a half hour long, 40 minutes long in some games.
Honestly,
which is good because the marching bands are there, and I get it, but also 40 minutes or 30 minutes is a really long time.
Well, to me, if you have an hour-long lightning delay, then you should have a shorter than halftime. That's just my opinion. Because the lightning delay happened 5 minutes to go before half. Just have a short halftime. You just had an hour break. You don't need to play for 5 minutes and then have another 35-minute halftime.
Halftime's too long in college football anyway.
So long.
But it's the thing that impressed me the most in the game was that Jason Bean was not like some superstar quarterback, unstoppable. He didn't look like Joe Burrow in the title game from a few years ago for LSU. But when they needed a play, when they were just like, it's time, we need something here, we got to do something here, we're going to lose this game to Oklahoma. He had like 4 different moments in that game when it's like, hey, man, I know it's only the second quarter, but we're desperate. We need it. We need it now, right now. He came up with it every single time. He's not a superstar quarterback. He's not a great college quarterback. He's just good enough. And in this game, he was more than good enough to beat Oklahoma.
They're very, very fortunate he did not transfer. We made this comment earlier in the season. After how the bowl game ended last year, right? He made the bad pass, to say the least, in overtime in the Liberty Bowl. And then a lot of people thought that was it. And then he came back, and thank goodness he did, because Jalen Daniels hasn't been available. And you saw how emotional he was after the game. Really, really cool moment. And all 3 local schools setting up for a pretty wild November into the month of December. And how about the potential KU-K-State matchup this year? This might be the first time, finally, KU holding up their end of the bargain, but where this game, when they match up, could be huge. If things continue trending in a certain direction, it could matter for the Big 12 conference race even. So
in Lawrence?
The game is in Lawrence this year. Yeah, that's gonna be a huge one. All right, we'll get to the trash of the day right now.
Trash of the day.
I got a couple for you guys. Number one, I don't know if either of you, have you ever had, like, everybody has like an itch in their ear? Like, you've had that, your ear's itchy, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But have you ever, like, if you've never had like an issue where someone had to
There's
actually
like a bug in my ear? No.
remove something. Well, that's what I'm saying. Doctors had to remove a small spider from a woman's ear canal. At some point, like she said, she heard it clicking and rustling for several days. At what point do you think like, oh, this isn't just me going crazy or whatever, that there's something in my ear? In this case, it was for a couple of days. She complained of a feeling of movement inside her ear, as well as clicking and rustling sounds that prevented her from sleeping for several nights. They looked in her ear, discovered a small spider and its discarded exoskeleton inside the woman's ear. They used a suction tube to remove the skeleton and the spider. She said she did not feel any pain because it was only like 2 to 3 millimeters inside. These are the kind of things that always freak me. Yeah, these are the kind of things
obviously you don't want
a
a spider burrowing into your ear. That's the worst case scenario. I'm not even afraid of spiders. They don't bother me. And even I am not, like, that story sends shivers down my spine where you're just like, nope, absolutely not. It's like those same ones you'd be like, the headline would be like, laid eggs in their face. You're like, what? They can do that?
Someone said they had a moth that got stuck in their ear. Probably the same feeling. Like, could you feel, I guess it can't flap its wings in the ear, but like, could you feel it moving in your ear?
I think the worst I've had is like maybe like swallowed a bug, right? I mean, that's...
You knew you swallowed the bug?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Oh, I've had like a bug fly into your mouth. You've never had that happen?
No.
Oh,
I've always heard,
yes,
I've always heard
I
that
have.
we all, when we're sleeping, like these microscopic spiders.
No, not sleeping. Just like you're outside, you're running around, and then all of a sudden, like a fly flies into your mouth.
If you're riding your bike, and you got your
Sure, I've had flies hit my face and stuff. Like even like
no, straight into the mouth before. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Why are you
It's a
keep your
weird
mouth
feeling.
closed a little bit, man? What do you like?
I was probably talking. We're on bikes. We're
Yeah.
kids. We're riding next to each other. I lived on my bike as a kid.
I mean,
I might have been
so
gone
did
for
I.
10 straight hours when I was like 12
No, I never.
years old on my bike.
I never ate. I mean, I've had bugs hit my face or whatever while riding a bike, but not like my mouth open and a fly just goes in and swallow it immediately. No.
Oh well.
I don't know if I swallowed it. It was a very I don't know. But yes,
what choice at that point?
It has happened before.
That's
to
gut.
me,
That's
yes.
gut instinct.
Huh. All right, this next one. I'll warn you on this one.
Is this one? Wait, warn me?
Yeah.
This is worse than the last one about a spider laying an egg in my ear?
Well, yeah, this is disgusting.
Great.
You've, when's the last time you guys donated to like Goodwill or something? You know, like
I don't know.
in the wintertime.
Couple of weeks ago.
Okay, yeah, like in the wintertime, a lot of times, you know, like or in the spring, you're cleaning out your closet. You realize you got clothes that you just don't wear, right? So you get a trash bag and you've got clothes with
Couple times a year.
nothing wrong with the clothes, so you drop it off. Okay, great. No, everybody should do that, right? Everybody should do that. Well, there's a thrift store asking people to stop donating. You're like, why? That's because a charity-run thrift store in Wales is asking supporters to stop donating their used and unused sex toys.
Oh no.
You gotta be smarter than this.
They don't want that at the thrift store.
You gotta be smarter than this. They said they're asking donors to be careful of what they bring to the store. Could those of you who kindly donate please be mindful that we are a children's charity and such? We don't basically need these toys. It says we therefore ask you to refrain from donating your used and unused marital aids. We would like to remind you that's what they're describing. And we remind you the branch has CCTV so that those items can be traced back to their owners. They're also trying to be like, hey, by the way, we know exactly who you are that are dropping these off. You're on camera, so don't do that. They're trying to now like shame them into not donating on top of it. Yeah, this don't.
You just gotta throw that away.
Yeah,
that's a used item that nobody wants to be the second person to use it kind of item. I gotta be honest.
So why are we talking about this over the air? It's the trash of the day. Come on, have you not listened to trash of the day before? This is nothing compared to some of them. We've had way dirtier ones. This one's just gross. Like, be smarter.
I guess the thing that always makes me wonder when they send out this release is, how often was this happening? That asking people not to do it was becoming a thing. Like 50 or 60 times? Like, how many were you getting in a calendar?
It wasn't just 5.
And talk about jobs you didn't realize sucked as bad as they did until you, like, had them. I would have thought, like, working at a thrift store maybe wasn't great anyway, right? Like, yeah, I got to sort through people's dirty stuff, and we got to clean it, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. But then what? In addition to that, I got to throw away all your used sex toys? Well, that's no good. That won't work for me. That's not a job I'm willing to have if that is on the bucket. Like, I just can't imagine your boss being like, hey, boss, I can't, I'm not doing this anymore. You'd be like, look, I'll send out a memo. Maybe people will see it and be like,
press release.
Hey, do you mind
I wonder if we talk to somebody locally and be like, what are some of the weird items people try to donate and you guys have to reject? I'm sure this has happened. at other places before.
I don't even know if I would reject it. If you're going through the bag and you see a toy in the bag, I would just say, you know what, we're throwing the bag away. Or you just keep, you don't even forget the clothes that are in there. We're not taking any of those clothes.
You just be like, I don't even want any of the.
We're not.
It's all tainted.
Yeah,
We're done.
we're not giving any of the clothes away.
No, we're out.
None of these can be donated.
Nothing in that. Nothing.
Yes, in the bag. Nothing.
I
in
don't
the
think
bag.
anything that came from that person's house. I think it's all incinerator, straight to the burn pit.
Whenever they bring something,
Are you kidding me? Yeah, I don't care.
You've been
I don't care if
banned
they
from
brought
Goodwills.
I don't care if they brought a bed frame, chop it up with an axe, and put it in the incinerator. We're done here. I assume Goodwills have incinerators. Is that a fair assumption? That would seem like a logical thing. In case you had any like bed bug issues or something. I feel like an incinerator would be like a nice thing to have for her. Do thrift stores have incinerators, or is that no? Is this just like a false assumption?
They don't have an incinerator.
Probably not there.
it's
They
just
might
dumpsters?
have a place that they go to have it incinerated, but
I doubt they just have incinerators in the back of the Goodwill stores.
I don't think so.
They should.
When you go to donate and you look inside, there's not. I don't think there's an incinerator in there.
There was once, Drew, this was one of the first, 8 months of this show, going back to 2020 or so. And myself, Cody, and 2 producers ago, Serta, went to a thrift store because Cody had lost a bet.
Oh, yeah.
And it involved, you had to dress up in clothes of our choosing or
Yes,
something.
on a date.
On a date
Had to
with
go out
your
with my
wife.
wife.
And
Yeah.
I can't remember if you actually ended
I
up
went.
doing it. And then, okay, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember
The payoff was weird because it was like right at the time as Serta was leaving, but yes.
Okay. And we went to the thrift store, and you'd be amazed some of the stuff that's even in there on the shelves.
It was a like leopard print, silky kind of scarf.
Nice.
Kind of looked like a, God, what's the best way to describe that top? Kind of looked like a couch from the 80s.
Yeah.
And then the pants were like blue and yellow Zubaz. Probably, but they were like hospital pants. They were like borderline scrubs. But that was like kind of the design on them. It was not a great look. Not my finest look by any means.
Where did you go on this day? I mean, was it
I
like,
don't remember. Like it had to be a sit-down restaurant.
Okay.
I couldn't just like go somewhere where maybe this would be like, yeah, okay. No, it was like a sit down. I don't remember.
Not as bad for him because he was going with his wife.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
if you were going
sure.
on a
Yeah,
if you were going
the
on a
bet was
date
between like multiple people who might end up having to get it. Yeah, if you had to go on a date,
it's
way
way
worse.
worse for
Way
you. You
worse.
went with your wife. Big deal.
Although I make the argument that like my wife would be like, you're an idiot and I don't want to be around you while you're being an idiot. A date might be like, oh, look, he's a fun guy who's doing fun things with his radio friends. They might look at it
I
as
don't
in
think so.
you are easygoing and fun.
I don't think so.
No, man.
It's possible.
Someone says they owned Argentine thrift for years. They used to get crack pipes, bags of pot, almost anything you can imagine. They'd find money in purses. People donated a lot
Bags
of
of pot?
They said a lot of adult magazines, a few marital aids. Not very many of those, they said, in their donations.
You're donating pot to a.
Accidentally.
I'm assuming that's an accident.
Yeah. What they had a jacket that still had some in.
Oh, my goodness.
Somebody's upset. Somebody's be pissed off.
Jeez.
First
cool.
off, I don't even care if it's not a dirty. Why are you donating any magazines? A thrift store doesn't want your used. Nobody has ever
buying.
purchased a used magazine
Also,
unless it's like.
by the way, also, yeah, a used adult magazine. Are you kidding me? Nah.
Sir, we have the internet available at your
there's
disposal.
that wasn't even the first thought in my mind, but yes, that too. Anyway, that's the trash of the day. Coming up next, though, something the Broncos did, and I have no problem with it whatsoever. I'll tell you what it is next.
Cody and Gold on 610 Sports Radio. Brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. For asphalt, concrete, and parking lot maintenance, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Trusted in Kansas City since 1994. Online at GANN Asphalt.
You were coming back with sound, so I.
Oh, wait, on Mondays, on Mondays, I got to make sure I play each. Look, we only have 2 breaks an hour. I got 5 turnover calls to play. We don't have a ton of opportunities.
Come back with the Chiefs right after hour opening. You wouldn't play sound there. You wouldn't play it at what's trending.
Hey, I got to play sound of every turnover, unfortunately, today.
I'm not sure you're going to get to all of them.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I got to start now. I haven't mapped it out, but I got to start now. That one, unfortunately, was the McCall Hardman muffed punt. Mitch Holtis on the call. By the way, congrats to Mitch. His 500th game yesterday. He called yesterday for the Chiefs radio.
One
network.
to forget, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Not exactly
yeah.
the game you wanted to call for your 500th,
That's true.
I don't think.
That's very, very true. Just as we led the show with, we'll get back into it in 30 minutes, just all around, just a complete crappy, bleepy game of football played by the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce had, I thought at the time, what seemed like was going to be, Cody, like the play on offense to kind of get them rolling, right? It was Mahomes scrambled out and he kind of just lobbed it over I think it was the linebacker there, and Kelce was able to get the Chiefs at that point in the red zone. They just weren't able to do anything with it. I think that was a drive where they either turn it over or they settle for a field goal. Those were the 2 things that happened every single time when they were in the red zone, as a matter of fact. And after the game, the Broncos, ultimate trolling. By the way, you get to do that. But they played Taylor Swift. I think it was Shake It Off at the end of the game. You think it's a mistake? How's it a mistake? Let me hear you, and then let me hear, why is it a mistake?
For years after, the Chiefs continued to make bus references to the Raiders after they drove around their stadium in a victory lap one time. They decided to, for years, take it out on them for making one rub it in their mistake face once. I'm not saying they don't have a right to do it. We talked about this. We were talking about Jamar Chase tuning a can and all the trash talk you were allowed to do when you were the victor in a situation.
And
this is a mistake because it's going to piss them off. What you need to do is talk trash in a respectful way. This is going to go poorly because now you've just made Travis angry. Now you're going to be like, when are they going to play him? Next season? Because the Broncos sure as hell aren't going to the postseason because they still stink. I don't care if they beat the Chiefs yesterday or not. Making the Chiefs mad for years to come might mean you lose the next 16 in a row. Is that what you wanted? Is that what you wish would have happened? Is this what door you wish you had opened with this case? You should have just left it be.
The Broncos, of course they were going to troll. Their Twitter account had a tweet that was pretty funny as well. They've been having that thing saved in the draft since 2015. Of course they were going to troll. You said, like, what, you want to make the Chiefs mad? I hope they're pissed off because, I don't know, they turned the ball over 5 times. That would piss me off if I'm the Chiefs, that we turn it over 5 times, that we lose and played like ass. That would piss me off. Not that they played Taylor Swift after the game. And yeah, they don't play till next year.
Oh, they're allowed to play. I'm not saying that.
And then, like, you said, oh, you made them mad. Now they're going to beat you. You mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? They beat you another 16 times in a row?
You know what some of this is like they had no reason to respect or hate you until this point. They beat you 16 times in a row just because you stunk. Now they have motivation to beat you in addition to this. You know what's even worse than this? You might not like this take. I saw people suggesting that Travis Kelce being at the World Series game was the reason why they lost the game.
That's just dumb.
Okay, I'm telling you right now that if your take is Travis Kelce should have been, I don't know, studying dig routes instead of going to the World Series game in which Patrick Mahomes was also scheduled to go before getting ill, that's just an awful take. There's no reason, and he's not distracted more because he goes there. What rich people do in their free time, I'm just going to give it, it's a little different than what we do. This is the same as if Gold, the day before a show, went out to a bar for a few drinks. That's the equivalency. He flew private. He went back that night. He was at his job the next day.
Now, don't you know he took the megabus down there, clearly. He took a megabus down there. He was exhausted. He wasn't on a nice private jet that got in probably by 2 a.m. and still got 8+ hours of sleep, and the team didn't leave till 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Saturday. Yeah, I had multiple people outside of Kansas City that are not Chiefs fans texting me asking if I was concerned about Kelce, and I started laughing. And I had a way too long of a text thread discussion with people on Friday night. This was before the Chiefs lost, and this was Friday night about that. I'm like, please, if the Chiefs don't use that as the reason. It's not the reason. Not to mention, it's because cameras are on him. Are we naive enough that we think that there weren't any Chiefs players that in Kansas City were out, maybe drinking till 2 or 3 in the morning, which, by the way, I'm not being critical of that. My point being is, what do you think is worse? That, you think they just sit on their ass at home on a Friday night if they travel the next day? I would rather Travis Kelce go to a World Series game on Friday night and take the private jet back. So that whole thing, who cares? By the way, he's one of 3 players on the team probably that can get away with that anyway. That, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's 34 years old. I have no problem with it. That's not why they lost the game. Again, they turned the ball over 5 times.
I wouldn't care if it was Sky Moore out. They make it,
people would have.
Anytime these stories come out, they make it seem like this is the first time that Travis Kelce's even consumed a beer. Like he's a Puritan wearing a tri-corner hat, and they introduced alcohol to him for the first time the Friday before a game against the Broncos. Travis Kelce's been to a party. Like, he's been to a party before a game before. I have personally seen Travis Kelce out the Saturday night before a game, and it was fine.
Humble brag.
That's not a humble brag. I'm just telling you, it doesn't matter.
Hanging out with Travis Kelce.
I was not hanging out with Travis Kelce. He was just in the same area as me. That does not qualify as hanging out.
Slid that in there.
He did. He just kind of slowly dropped that in.
I just said he was in the same. I'm trying to defend the man.
You're correct, though. What was it, a couple years? You mentioned how they've done it. Was it 2 years ago Cincinnati was in the college football playoff? And I don't know the exact days, but they were in New Orleans or something. I think Travis was at the game, right? And came back. And they were actually, ironically enough, playing the Broncos that same weekend. Yeah. So they probably just don't respect the Broncos.
Maybe.
And
but
up until yesterday, that was understandable.
Also, C.J. Stroud was a guest picker on game day the day before they played and lost against Carolina. I mean, is that the conversation in Houston? Is, hey, C.J. Stroud lost the game because he was in.
Wait, C.J. Stroud was the guest picker yesterday? Or Saturday? In Utah?
I'm sorry. That was the week before. But
okay. No, you're good.
Same conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Same conversation.
But I don't understand the notion that he's not allowed to have a social life because look, I mean, maybe I would like Taylor Swift at some more of the games. He does perform better when she's there. There's almost no doubt about it.
He's left to his own devices. He's not as good.
How many times do we see that graphic pop up again?
Kevin Harlan, they mentioned, he obviously talked about it, but they popped that graphic up there at the end of the game again.
My dad is sick of it.
Of the graphic?
No, of the Taylor Swift thing. He's like, this is ridiculous. Like that, it doesn't matter. You don't even like you shouldn't care. It's fine.
It's just tired. People get tired of it. I just wonder, I can't. Like, there's just so many things that went wrong in that game. Where would you put? Like, if I honestly made you, I'm like, all right, Gold, you got to give me 50 reasons why the Chiefs lost the game. What number do you think Travis Kelce went to a World Series game on a Friday night would rank?
Unranked, but 50. 50.
It wouldn't even make it on the list.
Yeah, I mean, that's
stupid.
Put,
I would borderline put equipment manager used wrong tape on ankle that I didn't know about. I had unknown, unforeseeable things ahead of Travis Kelce went to one World Series game, had a couple of drinks afterwards, still made it to his job on time to fly out.
No, I think you watch the game, and the Chiefs didn't have any energy to start. And I don't know if that was just Patrick Mahomes being sick, therefore he maybe didn't have the same peppiness and warm-ups, and the rest of the team followed. Like we talk all the time on the positive end of people feeding off the energy from a quarterback, in this case, Patrick Mahomes. I think sometimes it can go on the negative side, right, where Mahomes clearly wasn't feeling well, maybe wasn't as, energetic during pregame, and the rest of it, that's normally where I would expect Travis or Chris Jones, and I'm not saying that they didn't do this, but those are the guys that when your quarterback maybe doesn't have the same level of energy, someone else has to bring that to the team, and nobody else did. The sideline didn't look as energetic when they would cut to it as well. And all around, that set the tone, I do think. That set the tone. Ultimately, they lost because they turned the ball over 5 times. But,
yeah, that's why.
But that set the tone, I think, early on. There wasn't a whole lot of energy. The Broncos, it's cliche, right? They wanted it more there at the beginning of the game, right? That was stuff that you saw play out very early on. And yet somehow it was 14-9 at halftime, and I still believed at that point, okay, all right, they're going to snap out of it. It's 14-9. After all that, they turned it over 3 times. They're only down 5. All right, we've seen this. They're just playing with their food. Like that was where everything was heading in that direction. Nope, 5 turnovers.
Maybe the Chiefs had to lose so that Sporting Kansas City and Kansas could win.
Yeah, Sporting was impressive last night. Very impressive. They got a chance to
absolutely
move on to the next round.
St. Louis. What a delight. Beating St. Louis in sporting events, it's like a time-honored tradition in Kansas. It feels nice. They lose their whole football team, so we can't even compete in that anymore. They've won a World Series just as recently as the St. Louis Cardinals have. That's delightful. Yeah. And they got a brand new soccer team who happens to be the number 1 seed in the MLS playoffs, and then Sporting went and beat them too.
We'll get to.
Although they're still got to win again in order to advance.
We'll get to what's bugging Drew here in about 6 minutes or so. I have refrained from using a certain word to describe the career of a certain Chiefs player. Because I had said that it's nuts to do that, not even a year and a half at that time, into his career.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit, I think I was wrong to not already say it, but I wanted to give him some more time. Doesn't mean that he's going to be out of the league in a year because he's on a rookie contract. And no, they shouldn't cut him. You guys probably already know who I'm talking about. Sky Moore's a bust, man. I hate to say it. I've not wanted to say it.
You've refrained very carefully from saying those exact words.
I know, because I think, frankly, we do that too early in people's careers, and a rookie season shouldn't be how we judge your entire career. And I was willing to see this year play out, and you can say, well, it's like, hey, it's week 9 here in a second. Yeah, exactly. And when I see a catch that I think 95% of wide receivers make, and couple it with where things are at, and the opportunity he's getting, and it's year 2 that you should have a grasp of the offense. I gave last year a pass because I believe that, hey, the offense, he couldn't pick it up. He admitted it, and I appreciate that in the offseason. But seeing more and more this year and seeing the snap count still be where it's at with 0 production, I think he's a bust, man. And the question now is, throughout the rest of his rookie contract, can he end up being a number 4 wide receiver for you? Because honestly, that's where it's at now.
I'd probably take that. I'd probably take productive number 4 just as long as it came with 3 or 4 touchdowns a year and, I don't know, 400 yards, right? You're the D-Rob of this unit. I mean, they spent a second. Like, this is the problem, is that, and this is the one position left because at least with pass rusher, he's gotten 1 here recently, maybe with wide receiver, right? Because Rashee Rice. But the recent history was like he took McCole Hardman. McCole Hardman has been twice as productive as Sky Moore. People in Kansas City didn't even like McCole when he was here. Sky been way worse than that. I think the biggest problem here is he doesn't look like he has one part of his game that he excels at more than anybody else in the league, right? He's not like, oh, the hands guy. He's not the fastest guy in the field. He's not the best route runner. He's not the most athletic. He has no skill set where you're like, he has an advantage over somebody else. He just looks slow. He looks like he can't get open when he's in the open field. He doesn't make guys miss. Like, there's no part of his game to make you feel good about right now. And honestly, if you were holding on to some glimmer of hope that Sky's going to turn around at this point, then you are just a blind optimist that needs to just let it go. There are other players in which you could still believe that about on this roster. Hell, even Kadarius Toney, for his limited number of snaps, gets the same target percentage as Travis Kelce. So you could just say, if Kadarius Toney's on the field, maybe he'll get thrown the ball more. Sky doesn't even do that. He doesn't even get targeted by Patrick Mahomes.
This was, I think, for a lot of people. Some people maybe already made up their mind, but for me, this was kind of like the last straw.
Chiefs, a trio receivers tight to the right. Now moving McKinnon that way as well. Mahomes going for Sky Moore in the end zone, and he drops the ball. 9 yards deep in the end zone. Mahomes laid it into his forearm. There was a defender back there on an over route to Sky Moore.
I think that play, we can talk about all the issues with the wide receiver. That play to me kind of sums it all up, not just for Sky, but going back to trust. And if that play, which saved me on it's 4th and 2, just dump it off, take the first down. You as an NFL quarterback, especially if your name is Patrick Mahomes, if your wide receiver is open, and he was open, by the way, you got to be able to believe that he can catch that pass. And correct. I have no problem with him taking that shot. It's in a perfect spot. And if it was just one thing, I wouldn't normally hone in on one particular drop because every wide receiver has dropped a key pass in their career.
Rice had a very key drop in this same game.
But this is an ongoing thing here. And when you have so few opportunities because you're not able to get open, you have to capitalize on those. And you didn't there, and it's happened time and time again. And how do you have trust if you're Mahomes? If plays like that are happening, Cody, how am I supposed to the next go around against Miami if he's open or I do have the check down? How am I supposed to believe that the next 4th down that I need a crucial catch that I can believe that he's going to go make it?
Whatever, and I had some hope for Sky this year. I was higher on him than I was Toney. I guess technically he's outperformed him, but not really. When you look at what he's done on a field, he has 418 yards total in his career. He had like 250 yards last year, and he's looking to be about 350 this year. It's just not going to work. No, you don't cut him in the middle of the season. That's crazy. But this offseason, when you go and seek wide receivers, he has to be on the potential end of training camp, not going to be on this roster anymore, guy. Because if you're not going to perform, there's no point in beating our head against the wall here.
I think also part of the problem is at some point, maybe the plan was for him to get all the slot snaps for this football team, and Rashee Rice has really evolved quicker, he's picked up the offense quicker, and he's getting a lot of the slot snaps. So then you're forcing Sky Moore to play on the outside, which he was on that play, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And that's not where he's effective. So it's ability, but also like this goes back to when we've discussed like the prototypical Andy Reid type wide receiver versus others. They got like 7 wide receivers that are slot wide receivers. I'm obviously exaggerating a little bit, but it seems like
does kind of feel that way.
It feels like the entire room is slot wide receivers, and that has to this point not worked. This is why I think it's a post-bye week if they're going to fix this, and maybe you think tomorrow by 3:00 at the trade deadline that's the fix. But I think this is somehow find a way to beat the Dolphins, which your defense, by the way, is good enough where I absolutely believe the Chiefs can still win on Sunday. You'd be foolish to think they have no chance to beat the Dolphins. That's just crazy. But as far as fixing and kind of reshuffling the deck a little bit and maybe kicking down some snap counts and trying to work on, I think that's a bye week thing that they're going to have to do. And the tricky part is this year, Cody, on the bye week is they're traveling back from Germany. So it's not even a normal bye week that you've had in the past. That's what's a little dangerous about it.
Just in retrospect, we should have known, because anytime you're really rooting for a player that you think can get it done, you always find yourself rooting for what I call the little big league moment, when Billy Haywood is standing in the dugout and he's happy that Jerry hits a CNI single in a pitch hitting situation. And he looks over to his assistant coach in that movie and he's like, yeah, but that's going to get him going, right? He's excited. And he's like, say something that you're super excited about a CNI single. That's Sky Moore's 2-yard touchdown in the Super Bowl. It was the moment that everyone's like, no, man, confidence. He caught a 2-yard wide open touchdown for his only catch in the Super Bowl, but this is going to be the thing that makes him think he can do it.
And the punt return.
And in retrospect, those are just 2 isolated plays in an otherwise completely unremarkable career. I mean, it's just like it's just not going to be a thing that happens. It stinks. And yeah, people are going to mention George Pickens' name for years as the person they should have taken instead of Sky Moore. We're going to have to do this whole DK Metcalf, McCole Hardman conversation.
And I love that. I love that. Let's just pick anybody that ever was drafted ahead of anybody. We can do that for so many. But yeah, I get it. I get why that's the comparison people are going to make.
What's bugging Drew?
If this is allowed to go on, this is not a society. This is anarchy!
All right, guys. Deion Sanders had some comments over the weekend. I don't know if you heard this. After the game was done, their game over the weekend, he was asked about Shadur Sanders, his son, getting hit and how they can protect him a little bit better. Here's what he had to say.
I just asked that in terms of the big picture, trying to keep Shadur upright, healthy.
The big picture, you go get new linemen. That's the picture. I'm going to paint it perfectly.
So openly saying, look, I'm going to get new linemen across the board.
What's the problem there?
Pat Narduzzi, earlier in the year, said that he didn't have enough talent on his roster after what Deion has done, and he was thrashed by everybody. Nobody's saying anything for Deion about openly saying, look, I need new linemen. What is to say the offensive lineman for Colorado? Like, you know what, coach? You don't need me? Fine. I'm going to enter the portal. And all of a sudden, you don't have any linemen at all whatsoever. I just feel like there's some things he can feel that way. And by the way, he's right. But there's some things I feel like you don't step into that public eye where you're like, yeah, I'm getting new linemen and I'm bringing them all in and I'm getting rid of everybody that we currently have and saying it openly.
So I normally would agree with you on this. 2 things. One, you're right that in the transfer portal, they're clearly going to go after defensive linemen, offensive linemen. We've known that since week 1, really.
And they'll be successful.
I think the difference here with Deion, and the only reason why I'm not being as critical on that comment, is I think those offensive linemen knew what they were getting themselves into. Like the style of coach, right? And how he approaches things. Some coaches, and I hate sometimes
to get your Louis the day he started the job.
So I don't have a problem because I think the offensive linemen know that that's how he handles things. He's not going to shy away from saying what he thinks. He's going to call you out. Like this is how he, and if you don't like it, then basically, like you said, pack your bags. Overall, yes, does it suck that basically saying, yeah, the offensive line, you guys are crap. Can't wait to get rid of you. Yeah, that's bad. But that's how he's approached it from the very beginning. So I'm not surprised by the comment. I don't have an issue with it.
No, I don't care. I mean, honestly, this is just a style of coach thing. Andy Reid is going to call you a sweetheart of a guy who's a future budding superstar.
Stacking games.
1 catch for 3 yards. He'll do that. And then guys like Bill Self, 4 times a year, come out and be like, this is the softest damn Kansas team I've ever had. Paper soft. Can't play a lick of defense. No one can shoot. Bill do that 4 times a year for every Kansas team in perpetuity.
That might happen after yesterday's scrimmage against Illinois.
He does that.
Doesn't count, you know.
But he does that to get him motivated. He knows that he calls him soft.
Maybe that's Deion's play. I think it's a little
did not say I'm replacing all of you after we already know that they stink. There's no that's. I don't know. I just feel like it's not necessarily the wrong message to send to your players because I get it and you know what you're getting into. It's just
this is how he approaches
It's more
stuff.
the response, I think. Why are people getting mad at Pat Narduzzi saying it when Deion says something very similar and maybe even more open about a specific position that we do know is true, but I don't know, you just don't have to say it in that light, I think, because you're stating the obvious. As a head coach, as a quote-unquote leader of a program, it just rubs people the wrong way a little bit.
But if it doesn't, guys in the locker room, then it doesn't matter, right? I mean, you said it yourself. The reaction that people have had towards Pat Narduzzi, the head coach at Pitt, is different than Deion. You know why? Because Deion's players know that's how he approaches things. My guess is Pitt players, that's normally not how Pat Narduzzi operates. And his own players in Pittsburgh were reacting on social media, calling out their coach. So I think that tells us everything we need to know. They're more surprised by it and not used to that in Pitt. Whereas with Deion, like this, they know what they got themselves in. This is not the first time Deion's going to ever call anybody out in a press conference.
I want to know how many of these guys actually were on the roster before. How many of these guys did he bring in the portal in the first place?
Well, we know he turned over a majority of the roster anyway.
Because I feel like this idea of Deion saying, "Hey, I messed up. We could have a little bit better play from these guys." Obviously, that's not Deion's style, but I think it would be refreshing as a player who's committed to being here, not feeling like I'm wasting my time. Because if I was an offensive, I'm going to be like, look, I'm not good enough, fine.
I mean, I went to the portal. 61 players to the portal last year.
I'd be like, look, I will enter the portal right now. And if you get that from 4 offensive linemen, guess what's going to happen to Shedeur? I mean, it's not one thing. I think Shedeur also holds onto the ball way too damn long as well. Like, the offense that they call isn't designed for a bad offensive line. It's designed for good offensive line, which is what you don't have. So they're putting Shedeur in a bad spot anyways by not calling an offenses with the bad offensive line they have. But it was bothering me a little bit.
All right. So what's bugging Drew?
It's not quite as bad as last week, I guess. Last week you guys were giving me a hard time.
Well, Cincinnati's not bugging you anymore as much, so now we gotta turn the attention to Deion Sanders. That's what happened,
Hey, you know what? I am so excited after that win yesterday. It also does feel a little bit good because the mode that you guys are in, I think, not necessarily panicking, but like Chiefs fans, that's the way Bengals fans kind of felt after the 0-3 start or the 1-3 start, and now the roles were totally reversed.
Yeah, but also
it does feel a little bit nice.
They lose to Buffalo this week, and then they're in trouble again. They're still in last place in their division, I assume.
Yes, they are in last place in the division. They are
Chiefs are the number 1 seed.
They have the same record as the other two of the three teams ahead of them.
They're half a game out of 6th place in the AFC playoffs. So we make the playoffs. Just make the playoffs.
Coming up next, though, the injuries stacking up in one area for the Chiefs. But I do think this was the worst loss of the Mahomes and Andy Reid era. I'll tell you why next.
Chiefs fans, it's Creed Humphrey. Don't miss Cody and Gold week.
Arrowhead. The only place you can hear from Andy Reid on a Monday is right here on 610 Sports Radio during Cody and Gold. So we'll get you out to Arrowhead around noon today. Some more thoughts after the team flew back from Denver last night. I heard Kling talking this morning, though. I guess that they were stuck on the tarmac for like 2 hours, which we've all been there for 45 minutes before. I've never had a 2-hour wait. 45 minutes feels like forever. Like whether they were de-icing the plane because they had weather, which obviously you want to make sure they de-ice the plane. Nobody's saying that, but 2 hours is absurd. Kling thinks that maybe they knew it was the Chiefs' plan, and they're like, we'll move everybody else ahead of you. We're going to take our time.
Fine. We'll get
We're
there.
going to take our time getting to. He might be accurate on that, by the way. But sitting on a tarmac for 2 hours, that just sucks. Especially after a loss, you're like, just get our ass home, please.
Please.
Just get
I'm begging.
our ass home.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
Something
At least
terrible.
it wasn't a Sunday night game and they were de-icing at like 3 in the morning.
On a West Coast, out in L.A. or something where you're getting back at 4 a.m. No, it wasn't one of those. It definitely wasn't. But I do think it was the worst loss of the Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes era. And I sent this out on Twitter last night. I had a lot of responses, and I heard 2 other games, right? I'm not surprised by the response. I heard 2 other games people would mention. They would bring up the Colts game from a couple of years ago, even last year for that matter, right? But a couple of years ago. And the Titans game, where Kansas City had lost to Tennessee in 2021, 27-3. And let me go through that real quick. I think this is the worst if you consider the opponent on top of how it went down, right?
How they played, sure.
The Titans that year were 5-2 after the Chiefs looked terrible and lost 27-3. The Titans ended up that year racking up a bunch of wins. They were the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
In the AFC
How
that
can
year.
how can it be the worst loss to lose to the number 1 seed?
That's not the worst one. The Chiefs did fall to 3-4, and if you want to say, well, they're 6-2 now, I get that to a certain extent. And you're like, man, the Chiefs with the worst loss because they had fallen to 3-4. That actually, to me, though, when I look at the scenarios, is why this is worse. The team at that point really wasn't playing good. The Chiefs just came off a big win against the Chargers in which they had 500 yards of offense and Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns. Yesterday, to me,
facing one of the league's worst defenses.
Yesterday, to me, was the worst loss. This was a Broncos team that, you had won 16 straight, but was a 2-win team on the verge of maybe trading away all sorts of pieces. They still could by tomorrow's trade deadline. Andy Reid, to me, made mistakes with the whole staff made mistakes with substitutions in the game. 5 turnovers. It looked like there was 0 energy on the sideline. All of it coming together, knowing that the Germany game was up next against Miami. I think yesterday was the worst loss in the Reid-Mahomes era. It doesn't mean that they can't go to another AFC title game or anything like that, but yeah, this was a team that has no chance to go into the playoffs in Denver. The Titans were the number 1 seed.
I think I could make an argument for the Colts games.
I'm talking regular season, by the way. Some people are mentioning the AFC title game. I don't think the AFC title game can ever really be your worst loss of the Andy Reid
and by the
Mahomes
way,
era.
Marcus Mariota completing a pass to himself and the Pittsburgh Justin Houston and Antonio Brown 40 yards on the field are both worse than those AFC title game losses.
Yeah, people are mentioning the AFC title game to Cincy and then the Bucs Super Bowl. I'm talking just regular season. When was up the Bucs?
So you're in the Super Bowl. It can't be your worst loss in the Andy Reid era. You're playing.
Well, I mean, it can be, but if that's
Super Bowl,
it can be. But if that's your worst loss, then what are we talking about?
Well, and it's got to be probably like the Niners Broncos in the '80s kind of loss, like 51-3 or something.
I just thought,
in order
Cody,
to be there,
that there was,
Look, the Colts were terrible last year. Are you sure that it's not them? Matt Ryan was starting for them. He had 14 passing touchdowns last year. They stunk.
They lost by 15 to the Broncos yesterday, man.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
But the Colts are a 4-12 team. The Broncos already have 3 wins. They're going to get better than 4 wins this year, presumably.
I mean, for you and I bet, I hope so, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they are. I thought yesterday was the
Jeff
worst.
Saturday was a coach off the street for the Colts in that game.
Was Saturday coaching yet for that game, though?
Yes.
Was it? Was that his first or second game?
Jeff Saturday off of the damn street of ESPN.
They already fired Frank Reich?
Yes. 4-12 Colt squad? No. I'm assuming that was Jeff. Well, maybe not.
You might be right. I don't care enough to look it up. But
either way, you make the argument, right?
Yeah.
Like Frank White was the coach getting ready to get fired for Jeff Saturday off the couch, or Jeff Saturday off the couch beat your ass.
I got you.
Doesn't really matter.
I
Either
just
way,
think
it's bad.
I mean, there was misuse of timeouts yesterday. There was 5 turnovers. They had 12 men in the huddle on offense. On the punt return, McCole Hardman fumbled. They also were going to be penalized, but it got declined because they muffed the punt. All the way around, it was a crappy performance, and it's not just one guy. McCole Hardman, I appreciate after the game, owned it. And look, that fumble was huge because it was a 5-point game, but he wasn't the only reason why they lost. And this is what McCole had to say about that punt return.
You know what? I got greedy, man. I got selfish. Try to make a play down there. Should have been either a fair catch or let the ball bounce. That's probably the reason we probably lost the game. If I just, let that thing go, a fair catch it, and, just secure the catch. We still was down, I believe, 8, maybe. We're down 5. Yeah, so that's probably the one that kind of cost the game for real. So, I probably take responsibility for that one. Definitely take responsibility, actually, for losing that game because, never know if let that ball go or I catch it at 5, wherever it was, and we go down and score, and, that's it. So, just got to be more smart. Be careful to take care of the ball.
So he owned it. No doubt it was one of the biggest plays. And if they get the ball there, they would add it, drive down the field, which they had struggled to score once they did that. But it was a 5-point game. You don't put it just on that one. That one just is the real killer, though, because you're like, as bad as you had been playing, and you would have been down 5 with the ball, and we had seen that, magic happen plenty of times. And it just that was really, to me, when the game was over. As much as we want to highlight Sky Moore, as we did earlier, dropping an unacceptable drop in the end zone, they still were going to need to go score again. This one was, you get the ball, it's a 1-possession game, and you get the sense if they would have, if you drive down the field, your defense was actually going to be able to get stops.
I was like going back through the box scores just to try to decide. The Broncos had 240 yards. That's it. 240 yards in that game yesterday.
Yeah, Russ had 114.
3.7 yards per play. The Colts game, 249 yards. They're both hideous. The reason why I would vote the Colts, by the way, last year's Colts game, is because it's not a divisional game. At least I can chalk up a loss to Denver to, well, road divisional opponent. By the way, even more so than the 16
Doesn't that make it
consecutive
worse?
losses.
Doesn't that make it worse, though? That makes the loss even worse. You lost to a divisional opponent.
Well, but that's more understandable. I understand losing to divisional opponents.
No,
that's why Andy Reid
should
spent so much time. He'd never lost a road divisional game.
You should be up for a divisional game, though, not for some crappy Indianapolis Colts team. You should be up. Even if you've dominated the Broncos, you should be up. And we know right out of the gate they had no energy in that football game yesterday.
I am curious from the 913-586-7610. Just real quick, I'm going to give you a list of things. I want you to rank them 1 through 5.
Which are the 50?
Things? Which are the things that cost you the game the most? Like, that lost you the game the most, individual plays. Rashee Rice drop, MVS fumble, McCole Hardman fumble. Let's see, what else was on that list of just the absolute worst plays of the game? Maybe that opening drive, first touch, that probably wasn't it. Maybe the Andy not going for it on 4th and 5. Inside the 43, that's a whole nother thing we can talk about. One of these days, when Andy's not having a game, he might want to match the aggressiveness with the level of play he's getting. I think there's some part of the confidence in which he's not doing it. But, I mean, this game, the problem with this game from someone said it's not the worst loss, it's the worst performance. And I understand why they're trying to designate those things. Because performance-wise, almost inarguably, they had fumbles from their quarterback, McCole Hardman, and MVS. They had massive drops from Rashee Rice and Sky Moore. He threw 2 interceptions in addition to the fumble. They were bad in the red zone, bad on 3rd down. Andy made bad play calls inside the red zone. They didn't do anything right. Nothing right in this game. They didn't get the ball to Pacheco, nothing right. So if you're just saying like pure performance, you might be right. They didn't do anything well. What a hideous game. I'm never going to go back and watch that. I don't go back and watch the Chiefs games anyway. I'm going to be honest with you.
Super Bowl's about it. AFC title game, Super Bowl's about it.
What am I going to do? Like I used to, I'm dead serious. I used to go back through and I'd watch the condensed version that you could have with like NFL Game Pass, where they'd like put it together with no commercials and you could watch the thing in an hour and 15 minutes. And then one day I woke up and I said, what the hell am I doing in my life? There's just, I take very good notes during the game. I am confident that those notes will get me through. And then 6 days from now, when that game is long over, there'll be another game with more information about the Chiefs, just as much information as that game supplied. It's good. I'll just wait for Miami to watch some more Chiefs football. Not going back through, scrubbing the tape to see what went wrong. I can tell you what went wrong. A lot of turnovers, a lot of drop passes, wide receivers with very little separation. By the way, the numbers support that. The only wide receiver who had better than average amounts of separation yesterday was Rashee Rice. Probably
yards.
Shouldn't surprise you. Everyone else was below the league average in separation per play. So we know what happened in this game. It's not a mystery. It's one of, if it's not it'll be on the list. If like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they have another hideous loss against whoever,
look,
it'll be on the remember that loss and shouldn't we be including it?
They stand out so much because they're jarring because this team has won more games over the last 4 years, I think it is, than any other team in the league. And so when that's happening, these losses are going to stand out way more. They're going to be more jarring. And that's why there's probably more of reaction than what you get in other cities right now. The bar, and understandably so, is extremely high
and should be
for this team, and it should be. And yesterday was unacceptable. That was pathetic to go on the road in that spot and play like that and have those kind of mistakes. We're going to hear from Andy Reid coming up in about 15 minutes or so. We'll go out there. But the other part that is worth monitoring throughout the week is going to be the health of a couple of the other linebackers. We already know Nick Bolton went on IR on Saturday. But in the game yesterday, after making a great play on a key 4th down early, Drew Tranquill, that was a phenomenal play. At the time, it felt like that was going to be a play that could swing all the momentum towards Kansas City. He had the 4th down stop. You read it beautifully. Shut down Russell Wilson. Drew Tranquill got banged up. Willie Gay Jr. had a little tailbone injury or something. And we already know they were thin. Leo Chanel came up with some big plays, but with all due respect, you got Jack Cochran and some other guys playing a lot of snaps. That's concerning. If you're already without Nick Bolton on IR, you got to have Drew Tranquill available, and you get really thin at the linebacker spot.
Particularly bad week for it. Turns out Miami is a gap running team and really effective at it. and linebacker play is kind of important, Gold, based on that. And in this last game, you and I both were typing in the rundown at different times, right? We just both keep notes, kind of a running tab of things that may or may not be interesting when you get to the end of the game. One thing that absolutely stood out in this game was it was noticeable how much challenge they were having against running backs in the passing game because of the absence of Nick Bolton. Then Willie Gay was out, and it got worse. They were even more effective in throwing the ball to the running backs and getting it to them. So, yes, starting now until they get, hopefully both of these guys in the field. And again, we'll hear from Andy Reid, like you said, in 15 minutes or so. That will be when we start having the, if Willie Gay is going to miss time in this game or Drew Tranquill is going to miss time in this upcoming game against Miami, I'm not sure they have enough linebackers to be very effective against that Dolphins running game, in which we're talking about win the shootout. We might be shifting to that gear rather than, hey, your defense has really still kind of held everybody down, including the Broncos yesterday, by the way. Again, their scoring plays, 3 of their scoring drives were less than 50 yards. They couldn't get off the field in the third 5, but that's nitpicking.
Yeah, we can mention shootout on Sunday against the Dolphins, and maybe so, but this goes back to, I know they're never going to run the ball majority of the time, nor should they. But Isaiah Pacheco got 8 touches yesterday. I think if you're going to go up against a Dolphins team on Sunday, there is a little bit to the, hey, okay, the shootout is a shootout, fine. But with your offensive struggles right now, do you need to control the ball a little bit? Do you want to give the Dolphins, extra possessions besides just turning the ball over? Duh. But I think that's something that they'll have to keep an eye on Sunday morning when they take on the Dolphins.
If any of them miss, it's going to be my biggest concern going into the game. It's the biggest matchup problem they'll have going forward. The reason why their defenses work so well is not because they have 5 stars on defense. We've seen that version. I think I had asked, who was it that I asked last week? I had asked if this was a better defense than, Sean Barber. When he was in, I said, hey, this is the best Chiefs defense since when? And we all know that the way back machine that we're going in there is the Justin Houston, Tom Bahali, Eric Berry, when they had 3, 4, 5 all pros on one defense. This defense is not great because they have 5 all pros on it and then just players around it. Doesn't matter because those guys are great. This defense is great is because they are incredibly balanced on the defensive line, linebacker, crew, and corners. If you take some of that balance out, if the linebacker injuries are stacked up, it is a problem for this defense because that is what makes them great. The balance makes them great. So, yeah, I'm worried about injuries to Willie Gay. I'm worried about injuries to Drew Tranquill. And now I'm even more depressed about the injury to Nick Bolton because for a while I thought position of depth, you can cover it. And then they had 2 guys leave in the middle of the game with an injury. Feels a little different when Jack Cochran and Leo Chanel are, all of a sudden 2/3 of your linebacking crew.
Yeah. No, that was, early on in the game, even though before they got the additional injuries, the Broncos felt like they could run the ball, right? And they were going to say, prove to me you can stop it. And the first half, that's what the Broncos did. Yeah. They did to start the third quarter as well. But you saw the loss of Nick Bolton. You mentioned the passing game with running backs, but I think just in the running game, this McLaughlin kid is pretty impressive along with Javonte Williams there for Denver. Williams coming off the injury a year ago. But that was just one of those games where you're right, you'll remember it for a while because of how crappy it was, but just frustrating. Someone said that Sky Moore drop was demoralizing at that point. There's a lot of
it was.
the McCall Harmon muff was one of those.
That drop alone, I think, was the final straw of what you had been saying on the air to this point was, hey, look, it just looks like maybe it's heading towards bust. It might not work out that way. Things aren't looking good for Sky. You would soften the blow a little bit. And I could probably just see your brain the second that ball went through his hands, that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm out.
Pretty much.
Look, man, I tried. I tried to make this work. I was fighting for it. I wanted it to work. And then the second that ball went through his hands, you were like, I'm done.
I was trying to be very fair because I think it is way too early after one season of someone's career to say they're a bust or even, 23 games or something a lot of times. But I don't know how we can't say that he's not going to be the type of player that everybody thought he was going to be coming out of college.
Are you willing to give Mahomes any of the flu pass? Sick, doesn't feel good, didn't perform well?
Yeah, he clearly wasn't right. He clearly looks, how that sick look, when someone, everybody looks sick when they're sick. Yeah. He had that look, no doubt. I don't think he had as much energy. And to me, that translated to the sideline. And I was hoping somebody else would take over that, and it clearly didn't happen. So, yeah, I don't think that's why they had 2 bad interceptions or anything. No, I don't. But I think I put the lack of energy from him going over to the rest of the team because he was sick. I'll buy into that. I don't think the mistakes they made were because necessarily he was sick. But he wasn't feeling great, and I just think there was zero energy, and that started very, very early on in that game. It was pretty evident.
I mean, because the only other choice is, with Sky is to question what people were asking at training camp, which was cut Richie James, cut Sky Moore. I think those are the people they mentioned, and then keep Amir Smith-Marset.
Okay, well, yeah.
You don't want to go back in the time machine and keep Amir Smith-Marset? You don't want to be that guy, huh? No. He does have 0 catches this year, so I mean, he could have 3 for this team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, let's not do.
Or does he have a catch?
Smith-Marset would have been the solution.
Honest to God, we're down real bad if we start. The Chiefs are 6-2. We don't have to be down as bad as should they have kept Amir Smith-Marset.
Also,
That's for worse franchises, okay?
And you know who they
That's
kept?
for bad teams.
They did keep someone else instead of him.
Justin Ross?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. That did happen.
I'll take it back. He does have. He has. Oh, no, those are return yards. Sorry. I was trying to see if he had a catch real quick. No, he's just their punt returner. That's all I got for you. It turns out I, like most people, have not watched much Carolina Panther football this year.
Got their first win yesterday.
I'm not planning. I'm planning on continuing that streak. Yeah, that's probably going to be a season-long epidemic. They don't even show up on Red Zone. It's not even like I accidentally watch some Panthers football. They don't even score. I don't even see them outside of that. The most times they show them is like a pick 6 for the other team. So you don't want Amir Smith-Marset. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that is not solving the problem. No, and that that's not the mistake that they made.
Dude, when you're down bad sometimes, you watch a group of wide receivers perform bad in a game against the Broncos, and you got to start bringing up camp bodies.
These losses don't happen very often, and so they are amplified.
Yes.
That's the world we're in, and by the way, it's still a heck of a place to be.
It's a good place to be because at least you care.
And they're first place in the AFC still.
Not to minimize it, but, probably be looking at wide receiver in the offseason. We don't have to talk about that yet.
In fairness, we said that
anyway.
This point last year, too. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the Colts game a year ago.
They drafted a wide receiver.
They did. And that one, that pick still looks like it's trending in a very positive direction.
Yeah, I like that pick.
But the one the year before, not so much. All right, coming up next, we're going to hear from Andy Reid. The only place on a Monday that you can hear from Coach Reid is right here on 610 Sports Radio. Perhaps a little more thought on what he saw now that it's been a couple more hours post-Chiefs loss and effort, which featured 5 turnovers. We'll hear from Coach Reid next.
Cody and Gold.
People always call us like a bleak show. The idea of you having to. What? You disagree with me?
Well, I mean, I think it's hideous as well, especially because of Cincinnati.
This is a jersey over a hoodie.
Oh, that's not one article of clothing?
No. There's a jersey.
That's better. I'm sorry. I thought
you
it was
thought it was all connected.
I thought it was like sewn at the sleeve. I'm like, God, that's so bad, man.
It might as well be. It's still ugly.
I'm decked out today.
Mm-hmm. Orange and black is just not. Again, at least you're wearing it. This Halloween's tomorrow. Yeah,
that's right.
Wear it tomorrow.
Are you
Tomorrow's
guys going to
Halloween.
wear costumes for the show tomorrow? We have a video stream.
I know. What costume am I wearing though?
Let me go get some Cartier
buy
glasses.
something. I'm gonna have to go buy
Figure
something.
it out. No, just make something. I've got
I'm
a
not
costume because I
making a
wore one for my kid.
costume.
I'll wear mine.
I have to go buy something.
No, you can just make a costume out of something that
What
makes
am I
it
gonna
somewhat
make?
regular clothes.
What am I gonna make? What costume am I gonna make, man?
Just a bed sheet with some holes in it. You can go as Sky
I'm gonna-
Moore and
I'm gonna
Kadarius
be
Toney this year.
That's great. That's great.
It could just say Moore and Tony on your shirt. Just a bed sheet over your head with some holes cut out of it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying it's an option. That's all.
Yeah.
It'd be a very popular costume here in Kansas City.
I'll have to think of something for Halloween tomorrow. I don't know, man.
Are you guys gonna want Halloween music tomorrow?
Do whatever you want, man.
Is there that much Halloween music? It's like the Monster Mash, and that's kind of it, right?
And what's the other one where it's like,
What
here
else?
comes Halloween. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Wait, from the Nightmare Before Christmas?
This is
I guess
Halloween. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
I mean, that's kind of like a Christmas and Halloween movie, so that even that one's kind of
Someone says I should go as you. I should put on glasses. I used to wear glasses. You guys know that. But thanks to Jury Vision, I don't. I should just go as you. I'd have to wear a UMKC shirt. I'd have to offer to sing songs that day. And I'd have to bring in some baked goods. We got it covered. We got it covered. Yeah, yell.
Yell a lot.
Oh, man.
Wear some ruse gear, and you'd be fine.
Someone says I could always be the Nutcracker. I do have that costume still, I think.
You could be the Nutcracker.
Just wear that again.
You don't have to buy anything.
That's true. I think I have. Didn't I bring that in though? Did we get rid of it? Because Nick wore it one of his last days. I don't think I have it anymore.
You don't think you have it anymore?
No, because he wore
Nick
it.
took it with him to Denver?
It might be in a garage sale.
Okay, or check the drawers
room.
or something.
Yeah. Someone says put on a Tony jersey, have people throw me the football, and just drop it every single time.
Every time we throw you something in the...
Well, no, he's not even getting
thrown the ball.
Standing on the sideline most times these days.
Who would have thought that? That bite. I can go find it. Of Chirico saying another drop. I mean, that's still relevant. That's not good.
Someone says I can cut every line tomorrow and just say I'm Cody. That's true. That's part of it. Oh, I don't know. Are you wanting people to dress up?
I'm just
on
saying,
the
now
stream
that we
tomorrow?
have the video stream, this is the first time we would have had the video stream on Halloween.
Well, we don't even have, we need Halloween. If that's the case, we got to go out. We all of a sudden need Halloween decorations in the studio. We all of a sudden need the orange lighting.
Based on the framing of this show and the way the video stream works, the decorations would barely be noticeable. We saved that for Club 610 and Club 610 only.
Yeah.
I think I have a costume because I had to have one for a party I went to this year, so I can wear mine.
Yeah, I don't have. Man, I'll think about it. I'll think.
You're going to consider it.
What about you, Drew?
You got to look for that Nutcracker costume.
I don't have anything that is Halloween.
Could have saved this.
I am not a Halloween person. I'm not a Halloween person at all. So I don't get down for the whole Halloween stuff.
I feel like people who say that about a holiday feel that way about all holidays. They're like, I'm not a Halloween person, not a Christmas person, I'm not a 4th of July person. I don't like any of these holidays. Keep them out of my business. You like which one?
I love Christmas. Christmas and Thanksgiving is all we're all about it. As soon as
if we're ranking holidays for me, Christmas is one.
I think someone's a Chiefsaholic. I could just wear a Chiefs jersey and have the wolf hat on or whatever. Also, by the way, it might be hard to hear me. Could you imagine? I would have to take that thing off pretty quickly. I think I'd be burning up. But also, I don't know if you can hear me.
The screenshot that somebody takes of the
wolf, that's going to be expensive. Man.
For like one segment, you wear it?
This is where we asked the text line, 913-586-7610. Do any of you have a wolf head, even if it's in a police evidence locker, that Gold could borrow for a little bit?
I mean, there's some Amazon. Can we still get Amazon Prime? Can it get here? And that's not going to get here in time.
Does somebody have a Chiefsaholic
there's one.
costume he can borrow?
Halloween werewolf costume. That's a werewolf head. It's not the same, though. $14.99 just for the gloves and the head. Overnight it, get in from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. It'll be there before I leave for work.
Amazon Prime creates a problem for us. Like, the fact that you can get something from 4
overnight
to 8
is
a.m.,
crazy.
It's nuts.
I don't know. I'll think of something. I can't promise that I'll have something tomorrow, but
you'll think about it.
I'll think about something, yeah.
Okay. I mean, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's okay.
I'll do my best.
So we're waiting for Andy Reid to join us here momentarily as he'll join us live from the podium, which you can only hear right here on 610 Sports Radio. I think the biggest question that people are going to want to know from Andy and this team going forward, right, as they're getting ready to face another bad defense based on points per game allowed halfway through the season is, the question you should ask anyway is, by the end of the season, will the offense be better? That's it. That's what you need to know. Are there enough players? Is there enough out of Mahomes? Is there enough change in scheme out of Andy and Nagy the rest of the way that where they stand offensively now will not be where they end? Right now, they are 12th in points per game. That's not good enough. That's embarrassing. I told you if they finish somewhere in there, it would be embarrassing. The question I ask, and I think is the reasonable one, which is by week 17 or 18, will this conversation be different? And I think what that really requires is one more wide receiver you can just kind of trust. I'm good with Rice. I'm good with Kelsey. But what you see in the tape yesterday is on those third downs, they just quadruple cover Travis Kelsey and force you to go somewhere else. In those moments, is there just one more guy you can throw to? I guess at this point, I'm still hoping it'll be Tony, but I should probably just accept that it's Justin Watson.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned McKinnon's name, and I didn't like the third down, what would you call it, like a swing pass out to the flat and run into the sideline. But if you go back and look at that play where it was a third down and the Broncos were all over it, well, it's because the Chiefs had 4 blockers set up. They all whiffed on their blocks. Rashee Rice, most notably on that play. I think Jerick McKinnon is still one of the solutions to this problem in the red zone. I really do. And again, I know there was the one play yesterday, but I'm telling you, they had it actually set up. It was there. Everybody whiffed. I mean, they had it set up. If you go back and look, 3 or 4 blockers there in the flat, and Rashee Rice whiffed on his guy. That's why. Otherwise, it's set up, and they might get a touchdown off of that. So I think Jerick McKinnon's part of the solution. But if you're asking me by the end of the season, regular season that is, heading into the postseason, do we still feel the exact same way as we do this morning about the offense? I'm going to go ahead and say no. I'm going to use history on my side and say that as much as I'm critical and frustrated with how Andy Reid coached yesterday, I do trust that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will get this thing figured out as the season goes on. Yes, I think you'd almost be foolish to think that can't happen.
There's 2 things that certainly we can talk about individually as we get later in the week, but there are 2 consistent themes this year and last year that really do bother me with Andy, and it is the red zone efficiency, especially early in the season last year. Eventually, they did solve that problem, and maybe could still solve it this year. And the lack of aggressiveness. 4th and 2 from the 5-yard line on a day where it already seemed like you guys were off a little bit, and it was early, so maybe you let it go. But then later in the game, when you're down 8 and you only got 3 yards to go, 4 yards to go from the 43, there is a consistent thing where he just won't pedal to the metal at the time when it's called for. You and I both are not, you have to go for it every time, coach. I don't think that there's a case. I think there's a feel for the game, a situation, but he's the opposite. I'll never, under any circumstance, not going to happen, right? It's so rare that the opposite of this exists. I assume by the end of the year, you're right, Gold. We will be feeling a lot better about the offense because I do think Rice has gotten better. Someone's pointing out on the text line, he's got the most drops on the team. I'm not pretending like that's not a problem for him. It has consistently been a problem for him, including in this last game.
Mahomes has more of his passes dropped than any other quarterback in football this year. That was before this past week, by the way.
Well, is it only how many? The Sky Moore, is that going to get counted as a drop?
Absolutely.
You know, this is, man, it's like errors in baseball sometimes.
But
if it just went between his 2 hands, you know?
I mean, it should. Let's put it this way. I don't know. We all are counting that as a drop. I mean, my goodness, it was right in the breadbasket, man.
It was a perfect throw.
And don't tell me, it's over the shoulder. Someone earlier tried to say, well, Sky Moore didn't get the ball early, so he was rusty. I'm sorry. It's the NFL. You got to be ready to make the catch when your number is called. And you're getting as much snaps as he is. Don't give me this. Well, he didn't catch the ball earlier in the game.
Why is it that everyone wants to blame Mahomes for this? I mean, just generally.
Because he didn't play good yesterday. That's why.
I understand. But, just in general, it feels like the offensive problems, they like to go to Mahomes before they go to
He's
other
a quarterback.
more logical answers.
Cody, you know why? He's a quarterback. He is the quarterback, and he's the guy that signed to a $500 million contract. So people are going to always let any team, let alone when it's him, people are going to look at the quarterback. And yesterday was one of his worst games. I think that's very fair to say. Is it all his fault? Of course not. But he's part of the equation of blame. Absolutely.
I'm not saying he doesn't deserve some. I just feel like they want to put it on. It's and yesterday I thought he was holding on to the ball a little too long. What do you think the odds are? Patrick Mahomes, the guy who has looked like the best and has been the best quarterback in the NFL for 6 years. Do you think it's more likely that all of a sudden he has a case of the I don't want to throw the ball? Or do you think maybe it's that the other guys aren't open? Just hypothetically, what do you think is more realistic? Sure. The guys who historically haven't gotten open in their career aren't open? Or the guy who has historically been the most talented quarterback in NFL history doesn't have someone to throw the ball to? I mean, I can pretty I can pretty easily make my diagnosis based on that and where the offense is. This game, it's just one of those games. It's just so frustrating to watch the Chiefs struggle in this way because, again, we're not used to it. When they play this poorly on offense, we are not accustomed to it. And the defense is making it so that these are games, at least, in this scenario. But I don't want to go the rest of the year. I'm hoping by week 18, the conversation's different. It's so weird because it's just coming off a 400-yard, 4-touchdown performance from Mahomes.
Andy Reid running a little late today, obviously, so we'll let you know as soon as he's at the podium. You're not missing anything. In fact, the only place on a Monday that you can hear from Andy Reid is right here on 610 Sports Radio. So we'll go out there as soon as he is good to go. Little news in the NFL, as we were just talking, Jordan Schultz, who's now with Bleacher Report, is reporting that the Bills are signing veteran running back Leonard Fournette, pending a physical. So Lenny signing out there, adding some running back depth to go with James Cook in that backfield attack for the Buffalo
Were you
Bills.
surprised? The stat in this is what stuns me. Leonard Fournette had 1,200 all-purpose yards last year.
Did he really?
Anybody? You could have convinced me Leonard Fournette didn't even play last year. He had 1,200 all-purpose yards? It's not a bad signing by Buffalo.
Tampa, correct? That's where he was?
I guess I'm just surprised that he was that productive, that's all. I'm just a little surprised.
Had 668 on the ground last year. 523 yards receiving. That'll get you to the number.
523 yards receiving. That's a massive difference, and that's certainly
73 catches?
Tom Brady was the quarterback last year, correct? It's been that long. It feels like it's been a lot longer.
Sorry, my mind is blown by 73 catches last year. Okay.
The NFL schedule this weekend, by the way, is incredible. It includes, but the reason why it made me think this is Buffalo. Buffalo and Cincinnati play each other. Okay.
Sunday Night Football.
Automatically a great matchup. Obviously, Chiefs-Miami. For any NFL fan, massive game. Seahawks-Ravens. That looks like two division leaders going up against each other. And then Cowboys-Eagles. If the Cowboys win, they'll be back tied for the lead in their division. Just by beating, and now they got to beat them in Philly, and they got their ass absolutely handed to them the next time. It's the NFL. Odds of you just getting your teeth kicked in 2 times in a row are pretty low. It's a great week for NFL football just across the board.
Are they all in separate time slots, or are the
2 of them at least are?
Yeah,
two afternoon. Or are they both at the 3:25?
No, all different.
That's great.
All different.
That's
Seahawks
great.
Ravens is at noon. Cowboys Eagles is at 3:25. Bills Bengals is Sunday Night Football, and the Chiefs and Miami are in Germany.
Can't get better than that.
Not a single one of those great matchups lines up in the identical time slot. You are going to get if you want, all 4 of those games going at the same time, which is obviously fantastic news. I didn't see anybody on the text line offer you up a wolf's.
No, they suggested some other ideas for Halloween tomorrow on the show. Someone said I could get a centric training polo and just say I'm Russ Mondry.
You need a goatee for that.
I do. He has a beard or a goatee, yeah.
He's got a goatee. I feel like he's been rocking the goatee for a while. I don't think that works. Someone said you could just get the chain and go as shirtless Kirk Cousins on the plane.
With a bad Achilles.
I guess you just tape up
limp around.
Tape up your
just
ankle.
Limp around.
Nobody would see that on the video stream. That's not as effective.
Yeah. By the way, that sucks. I hate seeing Kirk Cousins get. I told you, I don't know how you can't like the guy watching the quarterback and all that. Team was starting to play better, and for him to have an Achilles as a free agent next year, that sucks.
Does Minnesota go after a guy like Kyler Murray because of that, do you think?
I don't know if they're going to do that. I mean, Kyler Murray's not playing next week. Wow. They might go sign Case Keenum. Well, no joke. Like, they might go bring back Case Keenum or trade. I think that's Case Keenum they have to trade for. I don't know.
He's a third string in Houston.
Yeah, so maybe they convince the Texans to help him out.
I think if I were Case Keenum, I'd just be asking for the cut today. I'd be like,
I can go
roll
start
up.
there.
Old squad needs me. NFC to AFC. What are you doing? You're starting C.J. Stroud the entire year anyway. So it's not like Case Keenum back there unless you feel like he's been valuable to the learning it. The Kirk Cousins thing, the most interesting thing that could happen in that scenario is if the upset happens tonight. Because if the upset happens tonight, if Detroit for some crazy reason loses to the Jimmy Garoppolo-led Raiders, then they're only a game out of their division. What do you do? Do you still keep fighting for this thing even though you lost your starting quarterback? I would argue you shouldn't. You should just cut bait with the players you can cut bait with, build the roster around and prepare for next year because you can't win anything with a backup quarterback. But NFL teams are not usually driven that way, Gold. In which case, maybe you do take the chance. Who's Kirk Cousins going to be starting for next year?
Yeah, right now it's hard to find that team based off of how many quarterbacks could get drafted in the first round, and who is willing to think that they're one quarterback away. Normally there's a bunch of teams that think, this past offseason, Derek Carr signed with the Saints. Aaron Rodgers traded, but signed with the Jets. Like there were some landing spots. Kirk Cousins, I don't think is going back to DC because actually that would make sense up in with the Commanders, but I don't think that's going to occur. So it's just kind of a weird spot to be in for, I think, Kirk Cousins. That's why the injury is so devastating.
No, it was really one of the hardest ones to watch. And for those reasons, let's talk. Look, we mentioned the trade deadline for them. Let me ask you this. Has your opinion on the trade deadline changed in any way for the Chiefs? Because the way this sits right now, Gold, we would have the argument to be like, should it change? Should it look a little bit different? Somebody mentioned another name that I think is worth bringing up in this conversation because I think I don't think this is one of those Brett Veach isn't doing his job if he doesn't make a trade, but I don't think he's not doing his job if he doesn't call some other teams and find out what the price is. You'd asked me earlier what wide receivers that could be available actually make sense for the Chiefs both financially and as a fit. I didn't think of the name earlier, but the text line helped me out. The answer is Terry McLaurin. He has had a dreadful year, and I'm not trying to hide behind that, but he's also a clear upgrade over a number of your wide receivers, even considering that. They have already openly, seemingly are willing to trade other players off of their team, and worst case scenario, this just means Jahan Dotson gets more work. I do think based on this performance, they should take a harder look over the next 24 hours about what a trade deadline in which they're actually active looks like for them. And because they're defending Super Bowl champions, I'm willing to give up draft assets in order to secure the 1 week spot on my roster.
Yeah, I mean, you can call all day long. By all accounts, he's not available, though, right? I mean, that name would be very, very interesting. But by all accounts, he's not available up there with the Commanders. New ownership group. Likely the last year for Ron Rivera. They'll probably have a new general manager as well. McLaurin's 28. Next year is cap hit $24 million. 2025 cap hit $23 million. That's not concerning. He'll be 30 at the end of his current contract. All that is fine. I just don't think he's available. Because, yeah, of course I would love Terry McLaurin in this offense. I don't think that's realistic. You're right. Like, that's a name that people can throw out. I don't disagree. But we can go through everybody's roster and say, well, this guy sounds like a great fit. The player has to also be available. And I do think the Chiefs probably have been, at least long before yesterday's game, exploring potential options. But I don't think yesterday's game, even though fan base might disagree, I don't think yesterday causes Brett Veach to go say, you know what, I'm willing to mortgage the future because of what happened yesterday.
I think
now, should they have signed a wide receiver? Should they have signed a wide receiver in the offseason? Of course.
In retrospect, obviously.
Clearly. And we know they were in on DeAndre Hopkins and Odell Beckham Jr., right?
This is part of the reason I think he might make the trade. Is that I think it's a strength for Brett Veach's job as a general manager. Brett Veach is not afraid to fix a mistake, right? When he's missed on a position, like when he's just taken a whiff, it doesn't stop him from going back to the well to try to solve that problem, right? Let's just take Sky Moore as an example. Just took a wide receiver in the second round. What'd he do? Go right back and take another wide receiver in the second round. Took McCole Hardman a few years before that. Didn't give him a contract extension. What did he do? Goes right back to it, right? Had Breeland's, had some picks at defensive end that didn't seem like that they were bearing fruit early, although now some of them, like Colin Saunders last year and Mike Dana this year, went back and took guy in the first round. He has taken those re-swings at positions where maybe it didn't come up before. He knows now his wide receiver offseason plan, and Brett Veach knows this. He knows his wide receiver offseason plan didn't come to fruition. It didn't work.
Nope.
So if you're not afraid to admit that it didn't work or it's not gonna work, which is what you have to tell yourself right now, then why not look for a option at wide receiver? The truth is, at the way these wide receivers are producing, it does not have to be a Mike Evans level wide receiver in order to better your circumstance. Before the season, we probably thought Mike Evans had to walk through the door to get better. Now, based on Sky and Tony's performance, is Curtis Samuel an upgrade at wide receiver? Maybe, right? Maybe. You don't have to go way up the depth chart, do you, in order to make your situation better?
To have the impact. I mean, look, I know it seems simple because 95% of receivers probably catch the ball that Sky Moore dropped in the end zone. But there is something to be said of joining a team in the middle of the season. I mean, we talked just last year when they signed or when they traded for Kadarius Toney, how long it would take to get acclimated with the system and all that. I get the Curtis Samuel mention because he's already running EB's offense, so everybody just assumes it's like the same thing. I get that, and maybe that's why the transition's easier. I just think that's also something to factor in. It's not just finances where the Chiefs only have about $3.5 million in cap space.
Can you get him up to speed?
But can you actually get him up to speed to where he can have the impact that we're all hoping said player can have? I'm not anti-trading for a wide receiver. I just don't think it's as realistic maybe as we all want it to be. And not only financially, draft capital, does that player fit in and give an impact that you're hoping? And we can all go, as I said with McLaurin, we can all go through rosters and find players we like. Are they actually available or not? Let's go out to Arrowhead right now, hear from Chiefs head coach Andy Reid.
Can you hear me?
We got you, Coach.
All right. So basically what I said yesterday evening, that you have that many turnovers, that's a problem. I take responsibility for it because of all three phases. We struggled there at times, didn't take advantage of opportunities, which we normally do. They took advantage of opportunities on our side with 17 points off of the turnovers, and you just can't. You're not going to be able to function at a very high level in the National Football League and win games playing like that. So it's my responsibility to get the team ready, and obviously, we weren't ready to play right there. I mean, they did a better job than what we did. So with that, time's yours.
Go first to Pete Sweeney. Good, Pete.
Hey, Coach. In your look back at the All-22, was the offensive issue just as simple as the turnovers, or could there be a greater issue with separation for some of your pass catchers? I know the trade deadline is coming up. I guess, do you feel like you guys have enough in-house in that regard?
Well, I do. It was a combination of things. It was one of those where we were kind of chasing, whether it was starting with me with a play call, whether it was the play that was called was okay, but we had a breakdown in protection, whether the protection was good and the play was good. We, receiver dropped the ball, or we didn't make the right read, from our quarterback side, and or we were running a wrong route. So it was one of everything. So when I mentioned that last night about there were things that I hadn't seen before from this group, who I have a lot of trust in, I saw things I hadn't seen before. So somewhere I didn't get that point across to the guys and and my coaches. So we got to make sure we do a better job there.
Let's go next to Sarin Petro. Go ahead, Sarin.
And Brad, I'll have a follow-up if I could too, please. Coach, I know, listen, you just stated that a lot of things obviously didn't go the way you wanted them to go. So when I ask this question, I'm not bringing it up as just, this one play or anything deciding the game, but MVS, when Pat on the fourth down threw it up to MVS, looked like that, he was being held. And we see it all the time in like the Hail Mary situation where receivers will just be kind of mauled. When you're in the competition committee conversations, is there talk about that like, hey, that's just how they're going to call it. They're not going to make a call on that, and we all got to live with it? Or is that, being the offensive guy in the room, is that something that, you bring up and has been discussed in the past?
Yeah, listen, I mean, we go through all that stuff. I would tell you, you look at Sky Moore. Sky Moore is going to take heat for dropping the ball. Well, when you look at it on tape, you see that his inside arm was dragged down, so away from the ball. So listen, the officials are human. They do a good job. It's just, sometimes it's hard to see everything. That's a tough deal by angles and all that. But I would tell you the majority of the time they do a good job with all that.
All right. And then just procedurally, I know the punters have gotten better and better in the league. And so where you catch it has gotten further and further, gotten closer and closer to the goal line. Would you, are you okay with McCole trying to make that catch at the 5, or is that starting to get to an area where you'd rather see him just turn and let it go?
Yeah, listen, I think he mentioned it last night that, he probably got a little greedy on that one, and you're inside the 10, you just let that go.
Let's go next to Jesse Newell. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hey, Andy. End of the first half, you guys had a 1st and 10 in the red zone, and that was the Mahomes strip sack play. You seemed pretty frustrated after that one. I just wondered if you could explain, kind of looking at that play call, what you guys were going for on that particular one.
Yeah. Well, obviously completion, more of a down there against that defense. And we're going to say the same thing this week. So it's the same defense is bang, bang calls. And you've got you got to get the ball out fast. And if that's not there or available, then, you're going to hang on to it and try to make a play. But that, that was the call was one for a bang banger. It just didn't work out the way I wanted it.
Let's go next to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Coach, this is kind of a historical, philosophical question, but seems appropriate with you playing the Dolphins. And they're doing a lot of things with Tyreek, with jet motion that you did with him. I know, Bill Walsh going back, hey, pre-snap motion's been part of the West Coast offense from the beginning. I know he told the story about Bob Trumpy lining up on the wrong side one day, and when he switched over, seeing the confusion it causes. But for you, how did that pre-snap motion, motion and the jet sweep motion kind of evolve with you as kind of a eureka moment in the offense?
Yeah, so I know that story about, from Bill Walsh. One of the things that you're always trying to do is give your quarterback a tell. So you're not just going to motion to motion or shift to shift or jet sweep to jet sweep, motion it. So, you're doing it for a reason, to try to give everybody, not only your quarterback, but everybody there, including the offensive line, an opportunity to see if there's an adjustment that takes place with it from the defense. So, and you watch us. I mean, we motion almost every play. It's we've got something going on there, whether it's just a short motion or we're flinching a motion. You see Trav do that where it looks like he's going to go on one side, comes back just off of one step. So, it just gives you an idea of what the defense is really going to show you. Defense is disguised very well, Matt. And so any pre-snap read that you can get, should be able to help you.
Let's go next to Mackenzie Nelson. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Hey, Coach, as you guys look to put this game behind you, could you talk a little bit about the excitement for Germany, but also the challenges that you guys are faced with this week as you prepare for that game?
Yeah, Mackenzie, it's a longer plane ride. So you've got to make sure that you handle that part right. It's a different time zone by quite a few hours. And so you've got to make sure that you handle that part and get some rest on the plane. We take everything into consideration from hydration on. So, and then how we practice once we get there. And so we leave on Thursday. We try to get our work done here and then get over there and still give ourselves time to kind of get in line. The game, I think, is an 8:30 a.m. game here. Or somewhere in that area. So it's, it's a bit different that way, but there is an excitement to it too. I mean, of going over there playing, and then you get to play a good football team, which we, we enjoy doing that.
Got two more. We'll go Sarin, then we'll go Matt. Go Sarin.
Coach, on the Germany front, I think I saw that the Dolphins are going over today. You're not going over till Thursday. I'm just curious what experiences, different things. What brought you to the decision to go when you are going over?
Yeah. Everybody kind of does it a little different. We did this a couple of years ago when we went to London. I've done it before with other teams, and so I just it worked. So I've kind of stuck by it. And we'll see how it goes. There's anyways, that's I'm not sure there's any right or wrong way. I mean, teams have done it all different ways, but I've had success doing it this way.
We'll go last to Matt McMullen. Good, Matt.
Hey, Coach. Historically speaking, your teams have tended to bounce back pretty quickly after tough losses. I'm just curious what goes into that process of learning from the previous game, but also flushing it and moving on.
Yeah, Matt. Well, it's you said it. I mean, you've got to learn from it, and there's a couple ways you can go about it. You can hang your head, or you can face the facts and try to get better. And so we've tried to go about it that way, make ourselves a better team. I don't know if that ties into the wins or losses after a bad game, but I mean, that's the way we approach it. And we've got good players here and good coaches, and there's a small margin between winning and losing in this league. And so you got to stay on top of your game all the time, every minute of it. So you start with that, and then you go to the rest of it, things that we can learn from.
Coach, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, that's Andy Reid exclusively here on 610 Sports Radio. He was asked about that Sky Moore drop in the end zone. He said that after rewatching the film, that Sky Moore's inside arm was dragged down by a defender, and that was the reason for not catching it. Look,
I just watched it. I'm dead serious 4 times after Andy said that.
Mm-hmm.
Drag down. That's far too generous. Maybe it was touched right at the end. A little. He's just trying to defend his guy, Gold, right?
Yeah, that's what this is.
It's fine.
I'm not going to call out his wide receiver. I'm not going to do that.
No, he's looking for reasons to give the kid confidence,
That's
which
right.
he probably desperately
that's
needs this
exactly
morning.
right. But yes, I don't think that's what caused the drop to happen. All right, coming up next, we'll react a little bit more to what Andy Reid had to say, certainly as they get set to take on the Dolphins in Germany. We'll also get back to the random question of the day for the first time this week right here on Cody and Gold.
Chiefs fans, it's Jawan Taylor. Don't miss.
trade deadline and where things stand heading into the 3 o'clock deadline. And I think it was Pete Sweeney that asked him, basically, do you think you have enough at wide receiver? And he went in longer, but initially he said, I do. Now, to be very clear, as I think we've all heard Andy Reid enough and also just know how this typically works. It'd be pretty stunning if the head coach the day before the trade deadline said, you know what? No, I don't think we have enough wide receivers. Like, it's one of those where I'm not saying that they can't make a trade, Cody, but that would be
Deion Sanders of them.
Yeah,
they stink.
That would be stunning. I mean, so whether or not they actually are calling and maybe truly think they need wide receivers, I don't think Andy was going to. And I'm not. And by the way, I would ask the question as well. I'm not being critical of Pete for asking the question at all. My point is, like, if you're saying, well, how could he say he's okay with the wide receiver room? He wasn't going to say, yeah, man, I think they all suck too. That would have been incredible.
The question you should ask yourself is that if he were injected with truth serum, how would he answer that question?
Sure.
And he would tell you they're not good enough. It doesn't mean that they have options. Like Matt Verderam, maybe we have him later in the week.
I'm sure we will.
He's made a solid point about it, which is they've got 5 picks and limited cap space. They're kind of forced to think their wide receivers are good enough. I still think a move is out there, and I wouldn't care if they had less draft equity next year than normal. I'd live my life based on those scenarios because they have more cap flexibility next season than they do now, so they can hypothetically hit the free agency market where normally they would go draft. And they've loaded up so many good young players in the draft the last 2 years. I'm not overly worried about them needing another 6, 7, 8 players out of the draft.
More than the draft picks, because we all value draft picks probably too much in general. It's the cap situation. You know that?
Yeah.
It's this year's cap. And then if it's a player that will cause you some cap problems next year. That's the challenge. And I just simply think it's difficult because there's not a ton of names that are out there. I mean, it's not as simple as just saying, well, I want that guy. The other team has to also want to trade him and to not have him part of their plans going forward. I mean, and so we can mention some of the names like Hopkins, who now I don't think is probably going to get traded based off of what the Titans just did. And now they got a young quarterback in Will Levis who looked pretty damn good. And
threw 3 touchdowns to Hopkins?
3 to DeAndre Hopkins, yeah. And
although that was still a terrible signing by him because essentially he claimed he wanted to win and then went to a spot where that was not plausible.
But he's under contract next year as well. So that's the other thing. It's not as simple as just trading for someone for this year. Are you good with having that money on the books next season? Do you think that player can still contribute next season for you?
I think one of the things that always stands out is they're like, look at Brett Veach's idiot. Look at all these players. I'm like, well, first, I understand the idea he was going for, and I don't even think he would deny the fact that it hasn't worked. The counting on Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney to take big leaps in year 2 in your system, bad plan. Didn't work out, right? Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. I will say, I think that was plan B. I do still think plan A was bring in Odell Beckham Jr. or bring in DeAndre Hopkins. And then the Ravens offered Odell Beckham Jr. such comically gigantic money that kind of ruined plan A. Plan A went out the window because it was unaffordable, it was unrealistic, and it wasn't going to happen. So they had to shift to plan B at wide receiver, which was Toney and Sky Moore will get better. We're going to draft Rashee Rice in the second round, and we're going to try to make this thing work. I understand the frustration with the offense, but like I see the text and be like, you guys are too soft on Reid. I'll be honest with you. I don't know we're hard on the team today. We've called this game embarrassing. The way they played was embarrassing. Like, this is a bad game.
It's the worst loss in the Reid-Mahomes era.
All of those things. But if you want me to come on this radio station and say Andy Reid is doing a bad job and Brett Veach are doing a bad job when I know they have hosted 5 consecutive AFC title games, been to 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls and won 2 of them, you got the wrong show. Because I am not willing to say that, because that would make me look stupid. If they're doing a bad job, how horrible a job is every other GM on the planet doing? Every other head coach in the universe, right? I mean, I'm just not willing to take that leap. This was an oversight at wide receiver in the offseason. This has been not Andy's best coaching job thus far, but we're also halfway through the season, and I have personally seen them fix their team halfway through the year at least twice in the last 6 years with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So I'm willing to think that they are able of solving some of their problems.
The one thing I know we'll talk about as the week gets closer to Germany and Frankfurt when the Chiefs take on the Dolphins is, they've been able to prevent the snowball effect when they've had losses like this. The few times they've happened, they've been able to bounce back very, very quickly. We know that the schedule features the Dolphins in a bye week, then it's Philadelphia, right? In the past, they have been able to have a game like this when everybody thinks the world is ending, and
they go out and beat Miami.
That's going to be interesting to watch. And even if they were to lose to Miami, does the offense show like they've improved? Does it make you feel better? Because in the past, even if you go back and look at the Colts game last year, just last year's Colts game, that loss did not spiral into 2 more losses. This year, it's a little scarier because the next 2 opponents are a 6-win Dolphins team and a 6-win Eagles team, right? So
correct.
That's why this is a little scarier about the road. Like, could they have a
tough stretch?
But in the past, they have been able to prevent the one pitiful performance, which yesterday was, from becoming 2 losses or 3. And that's what we'll see. Can they do that? Because they've done a very good job, even when we've had shows like this and days like this in the past, in years where they've won Super Bowls, by the way.
I do hate that they killed their cushion a little bit with Miami. It would be very
puts
Chiefs.
more pressure on this game Sunday.
Yeah,
definitely.
and it already had pressure.
Yeah.
It would be very Chiefs-like to lose to Denver and then go and beat Miami and Philly in back-to-back games.
By the way, happens all the time in the league, though.
Oh, yeah.
All the freaking
for good
time.
teams, yes.
Look, Buffalo lost to the Patriots and the Jets this season. The Dolphins,
their losses are okay,
but they haven't beat anybody.
They haven't beaten anyone over 500, but their losses are against Bills and
the Ravens, who are 6-2, lost to the Steelers, who I don't think are any good.
Oh, no.
The Steelers, maybe the Colts.
I think
were
the
other
Colts too.
Okay,
they lost to the Colts in overtime.
Yes. You go through, and we already know elsewhere in the AFC North, Cincinnati looks like they're heading in the right direction now, but they were below 500 not too long. Like, my point being is, teams can progress, teams can bounce back after performances like that. It's not like this is just who the team is now. That's just ridiculous. But we'll talk more about that coming up in the 1 o'clock hour and throughout the entire week, frankly. It's a Red Monday brought to you by the Xfinity 10G. Get a reliable home network so everyone can work, stream, and game at the same time.
Random question.
For you, Gold. For you, Drew, over in the text line, 913-586-7610. And of course, you can hit us up on the streams, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Check the comments for that as well. Question today I have is after, of course, the very sad passing of Matthew Perry yesterday. I think my brother had sent me a text. I had not seen it until late last night. And I actually want to acknowledge something before I ask you the question about some of the stuff he had covered in his other acting career. Because there was a quote from him not that long ago in which he'd said he'd hoped that the work he did with people in and out of the program and drug and alcohol addiction is what he hopes he was remembered for the most, and not things like Friends and those stuff. Not that he said he didn't like those things, but that he established those things because of his own struggles, and it's easier to help other people. So first, incredible a lot of the work he did with both alcoholic and drug addiction, and that's incredible. And then people are going to remember him because typically when it comes to pop culture icons, in which he was on one of the most popular sitcoms of all time, people are going to remember Chandler from Friends.
Yeah, I mean, that song right away, that was an incredible cast to begin with. And whether it's Seinfeld or Friends, there's no doubt that is one of the most iconic series. And it probably, sitcom-wise, it's not like now we have Netflix, we have Prime, whatever, wherever you're watching shows. It's just not the same feel. Like, that was one of those where
you had to sit down on
people felt connected to the show, literally, because you knew that, if you wanted to watch a certain show, you were watching that given night as well. And
there's only been a handful, I'd say, in our life where I remember everybody was going to watch the finale, like Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Friends, Seinfeld. There's very few shows in my life that qualify.
And look, I'll be honest, I probably watched more reruns of it than I did when it was in true. I watched more in syndication.
More in syndication than when it was on live.
Just given my age or whatever, like that. So, but I watched plenty. But for me, I actually remember when Fox 4, they had they customized this theme song.
Yeah.
And they made it for Fox 4. You remember that? When they did it, when they had the reruns, and they'd be like, they actually added Fox 4 into the song. That's the kind of stuff that I remember. But Chandler might have been and probably is the best character on that entire show.
I don't remember if I ever asked my sister. My nephew's named Chandler, probably at maybe the very tail end of the show, presumably named after the show. I mean, that has to be. Chandler was not a popular name then. And named him that right on that. The question I have is, what is your favorite non-Friends Matthew Perry work? Because we all, everybody knows him as Chandler. He's done a lot of other TV and movies. What's your favorite? I think mine is Fools Rush In.
Okay.
Him with Selma Hayek. He's super business guy. He gets married, rushed quick, and it's not supposed to work, and then it comes together. That is one of those, ultimate date night movies of a generation for me, probably, where I probably have seen that movie 3, 4, 5 times in that kind of scenario.
Yeah, for me, you probably didn't watch it in theaters, though. I watched it when it was available at that time on VHS or whatever, because it came out in 2000. But whole 9 yards, very popular movie at the time. Yeah. And think about the cast. So
well, the
obviously
sequel,
Matthew,
10 yards, obviously,
right? Yeah. But Matthew Perry, Bruce Willis, and Michael Clark Duncan was also in the whole 9 yards. So it was a great cast. That's the movie. Like when you talk about Matthew Perry on a movie end, that's what I'm going to remember the most.
Dude, somebody mentioning Almost Heroes. I haven't thought of. Have you ever seen that movie? I haven't thought of that movie in such a long time.
I haven't watched that.
It's
I don't even know what that. I really don't know what that is.
Okay, so
I don't either.
They're Lewis and Clark.
Okay.
Right. That's essentially the vibe, right? They're Lewis and Clark, but it's in a comedic way, like them going through and look at all the trouble they're in and all this stuff. It's a very like slapsticky comedy. It's something like Christopher Guest, like Best in Show, or you might. I mean, I'm sure you'd recognize some Christopher Guest stuff. It's got Christopher Farley and Matthew Perry. It's very funny. It's very goofy, very funny. I wouldn't even have thought about that movie. That might have been my answer.
Yeah, whole 9 yards for.
Nurse Jen says she agrees with Fools Rush In, whole 9 yards. Drew, you're the youngest member of the show. I'm assuming Friends wasn't on a regular watch for you, just considering age. What's your favorite Matthew Perry work?
It was not. This one, I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but it was brief, but it was a sitcom that was done called Go On, and Matthew Perry is a sports broadcaster. He's a radio show host. So
I'd never heard of it.
In our profession, and
I haven't heard of that show.
And he ends up he's really struggling with the loss of the death of his wife, and he ends up finding a support group, and they end up finding connection in a multitude of different ways. And I think it's encouraging outside of just what we do, but also for everybody can get behind meeting people and finding connection through different things that maybe you never thought you would be interested in. I think that it was an encouraging sitcom. Though again, it was short, but I think it was solid.
Looked like it was on
I enjoyed watching it.
It looks like, just quick Google, it looked like it was on NBC at the time, and it premiered during the 2012 Summer Olympics.
Perfect time to have.
I remember my wife watched Mr. Sunshine. Is that what it was called? She watched that one. There was like another I don't remember. I don't think that's what it was called. But there was another one kind of like that she watched for a little bit, maybe as part of that. There was quite a bit. Oh, not Lewis and Clark. Somebody said it was a group competing with Lewis and Clark.
Okay.
But they were supposed, the idea I think was that they were they're doing the same thing. They're Lewis and Clarking their way across the United States. But it's just going horribly, horribly wrong. 17 again is great. You guys ever see that?
Mm-mm.
I guess I need to get back into his catalog.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that didn't watch the full Friends, all the seasons of that are going to go back now and rewatch Friends after, unfortunately, the passing of Matthew Perry.
That show got really popular with the
LA.
generation younger than ours because of streaming. Like you find these, the same as like Gilmore Girls got a real popular run. And there's been like a couple here recently that have just had like massive spikes in repopularity, even though they're series that ended like some time ago as a result of, I think we all have I could have asked this question, what's your background TV show? Like, what's the show?
You have before, I think.
Yeah, which it's the same vibe. Friends is a background TV show for you. If you put it on the background and you're cleaning the house and you miss 2.5 episodes, okay, I'll get back around to where I've already seen the episodes before. I've missed nothing of substance due to the fact that I've seen this series multiple times through. That will always be one of those ultimate background TV shows, I would think.
Someone says, thanks for the depressing show. Chiefs, talking about the Chiefs losing and then a Matthew Perry question. Well, I mean, both are realities, unfortunately. It's terrible. You're right. Man. Obviously, one way more terrible than the other, please. My goodness.
Yeah, let's not lump
the two. Let's not put the two together. That was, that was stunning to see over the weekend, though.
Yeah,
when I came across, I think TMZ first had the news, and that was jarring to see. You had people that, that you're surprised, maybe even tweeting about it or whatever. I mean, that's how many people that he reached, because it was one of the most popular TV shows ever. And he was probably part of one of the best TV show casts ever, if you consider all the stars that were in that show.
Well, they changed how some of those guys got paid because they were the ones who shut it all down until every cast member got $1 million. That was a huge deal at the time. They were going to get $1 million per episode there towards the end of that Friends run, which is an incredible amount of money for when you think about network sitcom. Network sitcoms are 20, 30 episodes. It was a massive payday and finish for a lot of those people.
Oh, through syndication. I mean, they're all getting hefty checks.
Yeah.
Just, crazy.
Did you watch, you weren't a big Seinfeld guy either, were you?
No.
What's your syndicated show? Oh, we asked this once, and it was I I was sad at your answer. It was like, God, what was it?
Well, I've told you again. Well, now it's just
you don't
different.
watch a lot of TV sitcoms.
Well, now I definitely don't. Now it's if I'm watching stuff that's on Netflix or whatever. Like that's what I was saying about Friends earlier. Like it's not before there wasn't DVR at one point in time, right? And that was the first step. Now you don't even need DVR because it's just all streaming. But there was one point in time where if you didn't watch the show at it was Friday night. This is why ABC had the whole for years very successful TGIF, right? Like that was a big deal because like if you didn't watch it at 8:00 at night when it was on, you probably weren't watching it. And then DVR happens. So you're like, well, I don't have to be there at 8. I can DVR and watch it the next day. And then now everything's available on streaming, and you can literally watch it whenever the heck you want. You can pause it whenever you want, pick it back up.
Miss an episode, go back. It
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just the TV viewing part is very different.
I was just younger
like
for
when
Seinfeld.
they do I kind of like when the streaming services do that. We're releasing one episode a week. I kind of like it. Like forces me. It kind of forces me not to just consume it in 2 days. Takes all the.
But I like the binge watch.
I like
because again,
I don't mind
back in the
once a
in the
week.
90s and the 2000s, yeah, there'd be a show that airs on Sunday night. You'd watch it and then you talk about it the next week, and you're like, I can't wait. This, Game of Thrones obviously was set up that way, where it was was once a week. There is something to be said
the
for that.
anticipation for when the show's going to end. I'll say
It does for some of those like legendary type shows.
Yes.
But like the random show that's on net, like there's a lot of shows where you're like, I'm not waiting a week. You just would never finish the show if that's how it was set up. Like Game of Thrones, you were willing to wait because it was that kind of show. It was that good of a show until the last
If they
season.
released Tiger King one episode at a time, there's just no way I'm getting through.
That was also perfect
but that's
timing.
different,
That happened during COVID. It was like that show comes out 3 years earlier. Nobody cares about Tiger King.
Was there a second season of that?
There was some
did
spin-off
anybody
or
watch
something.
it?
There was some spin-off or something I did not watch.
I still have yet to watch Tiger King, and I am glad to say that. I had no interest in it, and I haven't watched it.
Somebody's right. Some good sports stuff did happen over the weekend. Sporting Kansas City beat up on St. Louis, which was great.
They were great last night.
Kansas got a massive program win against Oklahoma.
Rock Chalk.
They're going to build a damn statue for Lance Leipold at the rate this is going.
Sure, why not?
Beating Oklahoma back-to-back bowl seasons for the first time since 1920 or something ridiculous? What was that stat?
Which one? Sorry.
The first time they've been bowl eligible in back-to-back seasons since 1920.
No, that was a difference. So that was about starting 4-0 in back-to-back years or something like that. No, but that's
They're
a
not
different
bowl
stat.
eligible in back-to-back years
They
very
are.
often either.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone said Yellowstone's weekly. They still do it with some shows. I mean, I don't like sometimes I'm good with the binge. I'm fine. But other times it's cool if I just get to watch one episode.
All right, coming up next, 1 o'clock hour, we'll get back into the Chiefs. Something that happened towards the end of the game yesterday that Cody's upset about. I don't think it's a problem whatsoever. We'll tell you what it is next.
Chiefs fans.
fell to the Denver Broncos for the first time in 17 games. They had won 16 in a row. Mahomes, of course, had never lost on a road divisional game.
I'm sad.
That was
I'm
a
more
fun
sad
streak.
about that stat.
That was a fun
That wasn't
stat.
going to last forever either, but I liked it.
Definitely didn't think yesterday was going to be the day. But when you have 5 turnovers and you play as bad as they did, very difficult to come away with the win. And so that's why I had no issue at the end of the game yesterday, where on the video board, or at least on the speaker system, I should say, out at Empower Field at Mile High, they played Taylor Swift. And that was intentional.
Trying to get after their guy, Travis.
Look, you
Oh,
win.
you are allowed to trash talk. We have more than established
Their
that.
Twitter account had a funny video, wrestling video that they clearly have been waiting to use for, 8 years or so. After
Took them a while, but yes.
But they used it. Like you get to talk some trash, enjoy it. I have no problem with the Broncos doing that.
I just think they're playing a dangerous game. That's all. Playing a dangerous game of waking up a team to maybe beat you 17 more times in a row, this time. Because why? Why poke the bear? Why poke the bear?
Because you haven't been able to
16
celebrate
times in a row.
Because
they were celebrating like it was the damn Super Bowl. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I'd probably feel that way too.
That's the one
if
thing.
If you lost 16 consecutive times, I'd probably feel that way.
Yeah, I'm not going to blame them for doing that whatsoever. I mean, of course they were going to do that. And in what's you said, they're going to really want them to beat them the next time. I would hope so.
Well, they had no motivation before, dude. Just roll in. Other than it's a divisional game, which it wasn't much of that. It wasn't even that, dude. They beat them 16 straight times. They rolled out of bed and beat that squad. They didn't think anything of it until this moment. Oh, the highlights are on the TV.
Yeah, we got the Russell Wilson scramble. The touchdown call I just played they're just showing the highlight. Cody,
12
you
of
might
19
be right that the
for 114 yards and they lost the game.
You're probably right about the motivation not being there. Just losing to the Broncos
was enough.
And having 5 turnovers. Yeah, when they play next year, I'm pretty sure that's motivation enough. I don't care that the Taylor Swift stuff was played. Doesn't matter. And you got to be careful. Or what? They're going to win 16 more in a row. Like they've already won 16 in a row. Like there is no harm here.
This is
the Broncos.
This is the bitter end.
Let them enjoy.
This was as deep as the pit gets.
That was their Super Bowl. That's fine. They are still going nowhere. As of right now, it costs them a draft pick spot or 2 or 3 or 4 because they're picking 9th. They can enjoy that. I have no problem with that. I mean, the Chiefs or any other team, if you've lost to a team X amount of times, you can talk that talk after the game. I have no
Taylor
problem.
not being there, was that a problem for the team? People are asking, Gold.
No, we don't want her getting the flu as well. It sounds like multiple people on the team might have the flu or something. So,
well, yeah, don't want that. But we can joke about this because I think that they shouldn't. I'm just saying for their own safety. I'm not saying I understand why they did it. I'm saying that the next game might be 45-0, and Patrick Mahomes is gonna be.
Cody, what else is new though, other than yesterday? You know what I mean?
But you know what? In fairness, maybe nothing because they beat him pretty consistently over the last.
There is no harm
8
here.
years, so it turns out. The one that killed me this weekend was the people who were you and I both, and this is how I know that it wasn't just like we're making up things on the text line. This is probably a vocal minority, but you and I both received texts from people we knew before the game even kicked off. Complaining that Travis Kelce, in his own free time, flew down to a World Series game and watched it ahead of a division rival. I can't be any more clear than this. It means nothing.
Yeah.
They didn't lose because Patrick Mahomes because Travis Kelce wanted to take in some baseball. Patrick Mahomes, by the way, was scheduled to go with him and then had to cancel. He took a private jet to watch a baseball game. Do you know how many times we've talked about Patrick Mahomes being everywhere? Like in the middle of playoff runs. He's at nobody cared that he was at the KC Current game a couple of weeks ago before. Well, that was a Saturday before a Sunday game. I understand it's in Kansas City. No one cares. You shouldn't care. If you do, this is terrible mentality. Travis Kelce did not play poorly because he went to a baseball game.
No, I got no problem with that. That was silly before the game. If the Chiefs would have won, or in this case they lost, that had no bearing whatsoever. They had no energy and all that, whether it was because of sickness, whether it was just all the way around. But there's no reason that you look at going to a Friday night game where you have access to a private jet, by the way. It's not like you and I having to get up at 5:45 in the morning the next day to make sure we get the flight back or take a red eye. He was on, I'm sure, I almost promise you, he took a private jet there and back and probably still got 8 hours of sleep-ish.
Yeah,
the
probably.
team didn't leave till Saturday afternoon. I got no problem. People are acting, he didn't take the Greyhound bus, okay, down to Dallas or Arlington.
I think it's this,
you know what I mean?
The argument is this like focus thing. Like, you know, for a guy, someone's like, he looked slow. I'm like, the whole team looked slow.
Correct.
They were tired. They played a bad game. They kept turning the ball over. He's a 34-year-old NFL veteran. He could look tired and slow in any given game. I don't think that that's normally his MO, but I don't think it had anything to do with traveling to a game. Like, what? Like, come on. Like, of all the people to give the benefit, you know what kills me about this is like, of all the people to give the benefit of the doubt to, you think you can let Trav off of this one? He's one of the single greatest players in your franchise's history and a 2-time Super Bowl winning player for your team, still playing at an incredibly high level. Even after his so-so performance in the game yesterday, he's still on pace for over 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns this season. You sure? Of all the people, before you start being critical, I'd have understood if you had decided to throw a fit. If Sky Moore dropped that touchdown pass and it turned out it was him at that Rangers Diamondbacks games on Friday night.
Really
they'd have buried
that.
his ass.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that would have been silly, but I probably wouldn't have come on this show to defend him, okay? All right? I'd have thought it would have been silly too, but I wouldn't have defended him. Travis Kelce, you don't want to defend him?
He's one of 2 or 3 guys on the team. He's 34 years old. He's a future Hall of Famer. Do we also not think that while he was in Dallas or Arlington watching the game and getting back late in the night, you don't think there was anybody else on the team, Cody, that on Friday night that they were just out in general till 2 or 3 in the morning? But we didn't have cameras for that,
This
so
is
nobody
probably the
cares,
first time
right?
an athlete has ever gone out 2 days before a football game.
Someone says you can say what you want, but I bet you Travis won't do that again. Well, spoiler.
I bet he will.
Also, spoiler, the schedule probably won't align. He's going to be in Germany this weekend. So the World Series, by the time they get back from Germany, it'll be a bye week, and so it won't matter.
I don't know how to properly take this bet. How far out of the town does he have to go for this to count? I very specifically remember going to a Kansas basketball game and pounding beer, sitting courtside with our old producer's uncle.
I think they mean 2 days before a game, but I got you. Yeah.
That was before a game. That was in the middle of, that was like in December. That would have been before a playoff game.
No, they mean like as in 2 days before. I don't think it was. I don't think that was a big Monday game or something. I think is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like, I don't. Either way, I get your point. I still agree with you.
Standards of the bet.
Okay.
Same thing. Put it in escrow and I'll take it. Does it have to? How many days before a game? That's what I'm asking the text line. How many days does it have to be before the game? How many miles outside of the Kansas City metro area does he have to travel?
That's silly.
And what is the time frame I have before you said he'll never do it again? Like, do I have the rest of his playing career or just to like the end of this season? Because if you give me enough parameters here, I'm a buyer. Like if you just say I've only got to the end of this season, well, there's just less games. I don't have that much time to catch him in a.
I'm with you guys. I do think though that what they mean is like going out in the same city is fine, but flying multiple states over and then flying back, I think that's where they're coming from. I agree. I'm with you guys, but I think that's where they're coming from.
Well, yeah, that's of course that's where they're coming from. But
it's just not the same as you and me flying.
Yeah, unless you're on a private jet, it's just not the same whatsoever.
It was like a 2.5 hour flight.
Not even that. Probably.
No, yeah, it's probably less
from
than that.
To Dallas. No, it's not even 2.5
probably 2
hours.
hours.
In a private jet. Yeah,
hour and a half, 2 hours.
Everything's way simpler. Way simpler.
It looks worse, but it's the exact same thing as the guy's just going out and
that's what I'm saying. There's no cameras in front of him. There's no cameras in front of him, but I don't know. I can't name you the player, and I don't care who it is. I'm willing to bet there was a good chance somebody on the active 53-man roster was probably out just as late or later, but happened to be in Kansas City. Which one's worse? By the way, neither of them matter. But it's weird.
Yeah. Which one's worse? I mean, it doesn't matter. I was trying to decide if that was the same day. I was trying to decide what day the Kelce brothers were at that Phillies game and if it was like a day before a playoff game or something.
My favorite thing, and we all are guilty of this because I've said it on the show, you've said it in your life or on the show. We always use the term, it's just a bad look. Like trust me, I say it. We're all guilty of it. But ultimately, what's that mean? Truly, like, what's that mean when
just
I say
like his teammates don't care and his coach doesn't care? I guess I
always say like that's a bad look. Is it a bad look to his teammates? No, well then who cares? To Andy Reid? No, well then who cares? It's a bad look to what? Social media world? It's a bad look. Truly, because if that's all it is, then it doesn't matter. And I've used that as an example, so I'm not immune to it. But like, it's a bad look. We probably all use that too much. Like, but it's just a really bad look. What the hell does that even mean?
I still feel like I take that. I feel like he's going to end up at a Taylor Swift concert midweek one of these times in like a different country. I wouldn't care then. Tuesday night. Well, see, look, here's the problem. He can't do that because he got practice. Like he doesn't. The other part of it, like this goes to anyone's job. Just real quick. Travis Kelce puts in as much work as anybody in an NFL football field, right? He's got a very demanding job. He spent a lot of hours at his job. Got to do putting a lot of time over 15 years, right? Got to do a lot of stuff. Would you want your boss policing what you did on a Saturday, Gold, if you chose to do it and you showed up to work on a Monday? I don't need spec in my business. I got kind of drunk on Saturday. I don't need spec. I'm here. I'm okay, right? I don't need spec policing my weekend activities. Let the man live. If he showed up to work before a travel day, let me guess, he slept on a plane. He's probably fine.
I do think there's no way in any chance that he's doing this in a playoff game.
No, probably not.
There's no way.
That's fair. Probably not.
There's no way.
But again, it's not a play. I mean, it's just a regular season game.
I also
and
feel
it sucks they lost. And I knew it was so predictable, by the way. Like, because as you said, I was getting texts Friday night. Like, people were waiting. And Shannon Sharp this morning on what's he on now? Undisputed? No, he's not on.
First Take.
First Take.
I was like, wait, what's the show?
Yeah, I had to get confused. Whichever one. One of the loud debate shows. And he was saying it was a bad look for Travis. Like, people were waiting. People were waiting for that moment to crush him for going to the World Series game. Because if they would have won, there's no way in hell Shannon Sharp's bringing it up on First Take this morning.
I feel like we don't know how Andy actually feels about it because he's this is why I said it's a bad.
You can tell Andy sometimes, but in this case,
this is why I said it's a bad look for Dion. Because if something happens, you handle things in house. You don't talk about it. Like Andy wasn't asked about it, but it's not like Andy would come on and say, "Hey, Travis was out partying until 3 a.m. 2 nights ago, and I'm really irritated about it." Like Andy handles it in house if it even is a problem. So we have no idea.
If you tried to police the partying habits of rich 20 and early 30-year-olds for your entire NFL career, you'd be pulling your hair out forever.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
It's Red Monday here on Cody and Gold, brought to you by the Xfinity 10G. Get a reliable home network so everyone can work, stream, and game at the same time.
Did you miss football on Saturday because of your third cousin's wedding? Did you miss games on Sunday because you were at the pumpkin patch with your wife? Well, here's the funniest sounds from the football weekend.
You mentioned college football. That's where we're going to start. We're going to go to a little college football, and it actually has to do with College Game Day. And you guys remember a couple weeks ago, it was actually Steve Smith making some comments about Jerry Jeudy, right? Called him a jag and then went double down, triple down on the NFL Network broadcast. Well, he was part of College Game Day because he was out in Utah. Game Day was there for Utah and Oregon. Oregon slaughtered the hell out of Utah in that game. Thank you very much, Oregon minus 6.5. But Steve Smith was talking a little trash on NC State during the Game Day show.
Clemson has been struggling. They're not the Clemson we've loved over the years. But NC State, unfortunately, they're waiting for basketball to start.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
All right, so he makes a little crack at NC State. NC State wins, by the way, their football game. And then Dave Doran, the head coach at NC State, gets back to him very quickly.
Tell Steve Smith in the studio, this ain't a basketball school. He can kiss my ass.
That's great.
Good for Dave Doran, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
I mean,
NC
for a
State
guy that lives in Charlotte, he clearly has got his head faced west to Utah all the time, which, I understand. And no disrespect to him, but he disrespected our program. And I'm not going to let people do that. These kids have worked their butt off. We've won a lot of football games here. And in my tenure, I think we're second or third in the ACC in wins in football. So, he can take that and put it where it belongs. But this is not a basketball school. This is a great, great school that has great sports, and football is one of them. And so, yeah, if he wants to come see me, we can talk about that. But, do your homework before you start talking
Dave Doran.
How are you going to say before you talking ass, but not just say shove it up your ass, which is clearly what he was trying to say earlier?
Yeah.
Go full in if you're going to say it. Before we move away from football from the audio fun bag, let's get one more football one. I am fully invested in the conspiracy theory that Chris Collinsworth was threatened by Tyler Bagent's arm wrestling award-winning dad into like a beatdown or something, because I've never heard him be so complimentary of someone's play as I did Chris Collinsworth talking about Tyler Bagent last night.
This game, these couple of games, however long Bagent stays the starting quarterback, they're going to have Justin Fields study this guy. They're going to go, this is kind of some of the stuff we want to see out of our offense when you're playing here.
Excuse me? They're going to make Justin Fields study Tyler Bagent? It was more than that. He was complimenting him even more right before he threw his second pick of the night.
It's going to start happening, right? They're bringing pressure over here. And so now Bagent knows it, but he doesn't have anywhere to go with this thing. And so rightly, he just gets rid of the ball. Sometimes the best plays, and one of the things they want Justin Fields to figure out is that's a good play right there by Bagent, right? Yep. Sometimes the defense wins. Get rid of it. Give us a chance here on 3rd and 8.
Gotta wait.
Chargers bring 7 to the line. 4 of them come. Bagent's pass is picked up.
The same sequence.
I mean, gushing about the guy.
You know what's weird, though? Collinsworth's not just saying that for the hell of it. Like, that means when he was talking to the Bears personnel all week, because we all know, they talked to him the night or two before game, they were telling him, like, they were talking up Bagent, and they were telling him that they want I don't think he just pulled that out of his ass. I think
so weird. There's like 70 clips of him complimenting the guy.
But that's my point. Like I think there was Chicago, the Bears organization, was feeding Collinsworth some of this information. Like I don't think that was by accident. That's all I'm saying.
The last piece of audio from the Audio Fun Bag this weekend.
It's good.
I actually killed the music for a minute because I think this deserves its own standalone audio. Do you agree?
I do. We go to the NBA for this one. Flavor Flav was at the Milwaukee Bucks game for whatever reason. I don't know maybe background there. But they invited him to sing the national anthem, which I didn't know what you were expecting. When out of all, you invite Flavor Flav to sing the anthem. This is just part of how it went.
Oh, say does that star spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, of the brave, of the brave.
That was at a Bucks game.
Whoa, God. I know there's some people who aren't a fan of my singing on this show. I'd be better than that, right? Right? Than that?
I think so. Maybe. What he tried to do at the end was where. That's why I saved just the end part.
He was running out of breath.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
Cody Tap featuring Flavor Flav.
Brave.
Someone said that was better than they thought it would be, though, for Flavor Flav.
I'm trying to see you in one of those clocks, those big old clock necklaces.
Someone said not bad. Okay. I mean, yes, Roseanne was way worse. There's been worse than that, correct. I would agree with you guys. But that was pretty bad, though, still. Like, and whatever, like, I don't know how long you practiced the end there.
And the home of the brave, of the brave.
What's he doing?
Of the brave.
Yeah, it's not Fergie bad. It's not Roseanne bad, but it was bad.
Yeah, those ones are worse, but man, that ain't good.
Oh, I love it.
When it's someone like Flavor Flav, do you even like ask for a tape before you're like, it's like, I want to sing the national anthem. You're like, sure, man, go nuts.
Yes, I would have
You gotta
asked.
send like an example?
Flavor Flav? I would have asked.
That's all.
Oh, goodness.
Can I just get a clip or something?
Text line said he couldn't decide how to end it, so he used all three versions. Yeah, he couldn't narrow it down.
Oh, man. That one was bad.
He was trying to save it is what he was trying to do.
Well, like, singing with vibrato is like something your voice does. You don't just like, that's not how it works. People just like have that when they sing. They don't just like,
He needed some auto-tune.
I guess, man. They're saying Carl Lewis was the best worst. There are a
Yeah,
lot
Carl,
of
yeah.
really bad
That's
ones.
what I'm saying. It was not the worst. It's just I'll add that to the list. Like
His was funny bad, at least.
Yes.
Some are bad, just like standalone bad. I think his was at least funny bad. I wouldn't like looking at it and being like, oh, God, what have we done here? You know, that's got to count for something. Why don't you sing the national anthem at the next 610 day at the K? You know?
Yeah, that's right up my alley. You know that.
No? You don't want to do that?
No.
How much would someone have to pay you?
Oh, dude, a lot of money.
How much? What's the price tag?
For me to sing the
You
anthem
sing
where?
the national anthem 610 day at the K. You don't have any idea what the attendance will be that day. You're just going to have to take your risk
Look,
there.
my dollar amount's going to be way too high for anybody to think it's worth it.
Okay.
But I'll just tell you, it is at least $5K.
Okay. That's actually a lot lower than I thought you were going to say.
At least $5,000 to get me to
I
embarrass
thought you were going to
myself.
say like 100. I didn't know.
No, I was like at least $5,000. So that's the starting point. We'll
But
go
the
up.
two you did it. But you might not agree.
I'll start listening. But it might be it's probably going to take above $10,000 for sure though.
What if the two of you did it together?
Like as a duet?
Yes.
I don't know the duet parts. I don't feel like that's no good.
Well, no. You both just. I don't know if it would make Gold feel more comfortable up there with you.
I mean,
as
I'm assuming
well.
he would like any of the heat off, but I'm assuming his number is still $5,000.
Yeah.
I don't think it's moving up his line.
Absolutely. Drew, what's the number on yours then?
I would say 10K probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're higher.
I honestly wouldn't. I would have to get something for doing it though. Like I don't have a problem doing it, as much as it's I need to get something for it to convince me to do it.
Cash.
I would say yes.
Yeah. $10,000.
What else are they gonna offer me?
I don't know.
I'll just say this.
Signed
I'll just tell
jersey.
you,
Give me Crown Club seats for a year and fine.
Crown
For a
Club.
year.
Yeah, I'll say for a year. In general, Crown Club seats not going to get it done. Not going to get it done whatsoever. That's the audio fun bag from the weekend. Up next, we'll get to what's trending. We'll get back into what could happen tomorrow afternoon related to the Chiefs.
There's Kelsey to the end zone.
Cody and Gold brought to you by
Series all knotted up at a game apiece, and now shifts over to Phoenix Stadium. We walked by a few times when we were in Phoenix in February. We didn't go in, though. There was a restaurant. We could have gone in. We didn't go in.
I mean, it was like literally right at the bottom of the hill that we consistently parked at, right?
Yeah, there's a parking garage. Something tells me parking will be a little more expensive tonight in that same garage than what it was, even though it was Super Bowl week.
It was pretty expensive for Super Bowl week.
It's Rangers and Diamondbacks a little after 7 o'clock tonight over on Fox.
I did like the Diamondbacks got game 2. Hoping we get a good World Series overall. That game 1 was incredible.
I need Adolis Garcia was my World Series MVP bet. He was 5-1 before. He was him and Seager were both 5-1. After game 1, Garcia was plus 200. We'll see if he can keep his hot streak going. I still think the Rangers win the series, don't you, or no?
At this point, sure. I think they're the more talented team, but I wouldn't rule out the fact that they could get it done. Next up on What's Trending, injuries across the NFL. First, it was an injury-plagued quarterback game. Matt Stafford is still being evaluated by the Rams about what the IR is still possible for him, but they don't know because he can't grip the football. Kirk Cousins officially tore his Achilles according to the MRI results today. But then non-quarterbacks as well. Kendrick Bourne has a torn ACL and Grady Jarrett torn his too. So, a lot of injuries. Injury-plagued week 8. The Chiefs injuries, we don't have an update on those. As Andy typically says, they're just getting in. Mm-hmm. We'll get more of an update for that later on in the week. But a bad week for injuries across the NFL.
Also, a trade just happening moments ago. We know the trade deadline's tomorrow afternoon, but Tom Pelissero reporting the Giants are sending veteran defensive lineman Leonard Williams to the Seahawks for a 2024 second-round pick and a 25 fifth-round pick. We know the Giants lost yesterday in overtime off of a field goal. 13-10, I believe, was the final score, or something like that in that game. But Leonard Williams helping out the Seahawks, who are suddenly looking pretty good in the NFC West with the struggles of the 49ers currently. Seattle got a big win against Cleveland yesterday. We know Seattle added Frank Clark in the last week. Now they're adding Leonard Williams, trying to bolster that defense.
It's funny, man. We just thought they were barreling towards the number 1 seed, no questions asked. Brock Purdy got a concussion, stopped playing well. Debo's never come back. Christian McCaffrey still scores in every single damn game. Going against him in any fantasy game is the most frustrating experience of all time.
Yeah, Drew, you still wanting to do that trade? By the way, that's what's trending. But you still wanting that trade in our Cody and Gold Guillotine League? We'll have the person that got chopped.
He's still wanting to trade to Christian McCaffrey.
Call in
look at the
tomorrow.
roster.
The person that got chopped had all their money left. It's beautiful. Sorry, Joe. It's beautiful.
That's really
But
tough.
you want to make the McCaffrey
I'll have to look
trade.
at your roster. I'm not playing, yes.
McCaffrey's on a bye week this week. I don't want to do
Do
the
you want
trade.
to?
I want to wait till next week. Just like you didn't want to do it before last week, I don't want to do it this week. I want to wait till next week.
Okay.
I don't want to be down a roster spot.
Christian McCaffrey.
I got a touchdown from him, and the Bengals won the game, so I'm happy.
Gross.
If you want him, I will look at your roster. As long as you don't get cut or I don't get cut, then at that point.
Well, yeah, I'm not making a trade. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I can't make a trade with you if you
They're on
get
a
cut.
bye
Just
this
get
week.
Christian
too?
McCaffrey.
Yeah. They're on a bye this week? Gosh,
49ers
that's going to be trouble. I'm going to have to.
Oh, yeah, you
Is
might
the
get chopped.
guillotine loser going to get
Does Joe have a good running back?
Drew has the most money left now that Joe's about to get axed, and then I have the second most. So if you want to get chopped next week and then suddenly I have the most money, that puts me
And
in a,
Christian McCaffrey's
puts
available?
me in a great spot.
Something tells me you'll probably end up with Christian McCaffrey.
You'll not only have McCaffrey, you'll also have Joe Burrow available to you.
Yeah.
Or Geno Smith.
Hey, Sam Howell is kicking ass for me, all right? He's done just fine. Anyway.
Someone sent out a stat. He's been statistically the same quarterback as Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
So, it's a wash
Makes
now,
sense.
fellas.
Eric, the
Oh,
enemy's
my
there in
gosh.
D.C., so same quarterback performance.
Gotta
Yep.
match it up.
Mahomes, by the way, still the outright MVP favorite this morning.
Damn, really?
Jalen
No,
Hurts
no one's
went
really
from
jumped
8
ahead.
to 1. Jalen Hurts now right on his rear end there.
Well, that's not surprising. They're a
Fine.
one-loss team,
Fine
and he's
with me.
played very well.
Fine with me.
I'm
what's
not alive
trending.
in our guillotine league. I am alive
No, you got
in Charches.
chopped. You got chopped in week 3, 4.
I remain alive in Charches, and similar in both guillotine leagues, by the way. The person who got knocked out in both the leagues this week in Charches, $1,000. Had not spent a penny. Good. Get your money out of here.
But
Nobody wants
That's
it.
why, though, like you mentioned, so-and-so's got all the money, and they're in first place. There is no first place, man. It's just averaging points, and there's no first place because you gotta have some luck. You go from averaging 130 points to scoring 55 this week. That's how bad. That's why guillotine's fun, but also why you got to be really strategic in how you go about it. You never know, man.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
You could also pick the Chiefs in Survivor League like I did this past weekend and be really pissed off like I am still today. So played it right, was the right pick. I'd make it 100 times over 100 times again.
But why? You lost it.
because they had won 16 in a row, and I saved the Chiefs for this week. It was still the right play. Because if I would have picked the Chargers, who ended up winning, but if I would have picked them and they would have lost, you would have been like, what are you doing? You had the Chiefs against the Broncos. What are you doing? So, yeah, I'm still very – you want to know what I'm more upset about with the game? I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine. You know who's not fine? My survivor entry. Yeah, I'm selfish that way.
Damn. It's over, man.
In the final, there's 150 of us left. Gone. Just like that. 23K. Bye-bye. Down the drain.
Should have picked the Bengals.
No.
I was surprised that you were so confident last week in taking San Francisco.
I didn't take San Francisco in our
at the
thing.
time.
I took the Chiefs in our in-house one.
Yes, you did change it.
I changed it on Friday.
You originally did have.
Originally, I had Seattle -3.5. Anyway.
Would that have covered?
What's that?
I said, would Seattle have covered?
Did they?
Yeah, Seattle won by 4.
Quick little update here from Jeremy Fowler, by the way.
There's a trade. Yeah.
Jeremy Fowler saying that the Chiefs and Richie James are exploring possible trade possibilities, according to source. He's on IR, but would be healthy for a new team. Appears the odd man out after the McCole-Hardman trade. James had 50 catches for 569 yards and 4 touchdowns for the Giants. I mean, we said this from the beginning. What place? They're not carrying. I don't know how they carry 8 wide receivers. They weren't going to carry 9. Boy, that Richie James, that was, you know what? Every time I mention the Brett Veach offseason wide receiver plan, I do forget that part of like what we were discussing as a show, and certainly people were discussing, is that Richie James could be a 700-yard receiver for this team. That didn't come anywhere close.
He got hurt. And at this point,
but he wasn't playing before he got hurt.
He wasn't.
Him getting hurt definitely factors in, but he wasn't playing
If he wasn't playing, though, how long people would have been saying that he should be given more opportunities, though, right? Because nobody else has really stepped up.
Probably. I mean, at this point, I feel like Tony deserves more opportunities. He hasn't performed either, but he's not getting anywhere near the number of snaps as some of the other wide receivers who aren't performing.
I mean, if Richie James gets traded, what are we talking about? Like a 7th-round pick swap, a conditional 6th. I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
If you can get that, then great. I mean, any pick right now for Richie James seems fine. If there's a team willing to take on a wide receiver, then take him on. The other part about this that always interests me is like he's the odd man out. It's like, are the Chiefs really going to go for a wide receiver when they're already just handing out guys who they handed contracts to in the offseason? I'm not saying they handed out some huge deal for Richie James. When they paid him money and he was coming off a near 600-yard season, they had plans for some level of production.
No doubt. But it was $1 million.
No, I know. But I'm just curious.
And I obviously thought he was going to have a bigger impact. People will really freak out if he gets traded and somehow does have an impact somewhere else. That's always the one where everybody, second guesses everything.
This is the other part. It's like you said, if he was healthy, they'd be asking for. Are we sure we don't want to give Richie James a look, considering the way other wide receivers are performing?
They clearly don't think so.
Are you sure that this is the wide receiver you want to let go? Because I'll be honest, I'm not seeing enough production out of any wide receiver not named Rashee Rice to not at least take a look at what Richie James might offer my team. Maybe just a 1-week inactive for like Justin Ross, or a pretend fake twisted ankle for somebody else from getting 20 Richie James snaps just to see.
I mean, Justin Ross with the commissioner's exempt list, there's a good chance he's not ever active again this year. So all of a sudden, Richie James out, Justin Ross theoretically could be out.
But can McCole just have an injury for 1 week and I can just get a look at Richie James?
I mean, I don't want McCole to get hurt.
No, I'm pretend hurt. That's what I meant.
Come on now.
My legs are tired. That kind of thing.
If they do make a trade for a wide receiver, would you rather it be a 1 year and done, or would you rather it be, we're going for somebody, we're going to sign him, the plan is to look to the future, and Chris Jones probably is gone at that rate? Because if you're going to pay a guy like Mike Evans money, or whatever the case may be, if you land a guy.
I just don't think someone like Mike Evans is available, guys. Like, do we? I mean, the Bucs have lost 2 in a row.
Let's say Terry McLaurin.
Well, if he's available, yes.
If he's available, that's somebody who you trade for and you pay him, and you know that, okay, Chris Jones probably isn't getting the money.
The thing with McLaurin is he's got just like 2 years left on his deal. I just play it out. He'll be 30 at the end of it. They already gave him a little restructured deal. I just play it out at this point. I don't even know if I have to give McLaurin a brand new deal. You know what I mean? Like, that's the beautiful thing on that one. I just don't think, but that's also why I don't think the Commanders are trading him, because he's
right now the Chiefs have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 2 5ths, a 6th and a 7th. Well, some of these are unknown because it might be like they have 5 slated, but the comp picks and all this other stuff that go in there. And
Tell me the comp pick formula, Cody.
Well, they just gave up picks, right, to bring in McCole.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the truth is they got 5 or 6 picks right now, including that stuff. I'd be willing to have 4 picks next year if it meant a player of Terry McLaurin's status was in here. That's the one thing that interests me about the trade, Gold. Not that I think it's going to happen, because if right now you ask me, do they trade for a wide receiver in what? We got like almost exactly 24 hours away. In 24 hours, do I think the Chiefs are going to make a move? My guess is no, that they're not going to bring it in.
Yeah,
but I've gotten way further down the wide receiver list that I would be interested in because they almost all seem like an upgrade now.
Yeah, I think that is probably the majority opinion right now. I think most in Kansas City want them to go and trade for a wide receiver. I'm not against it. I just don't know if it's as simple as we make it out to be in a variety of ways. As just trade the guy, plug him in, instantly better. And don't give me this, let's be realistic. I know we all get hyperbolic, like, well, anybody would be better. Let's calm down for a second. That's not always the case.
No, just a lot more looking at upgrades than I thought before the season.
Financially, I'm not sure how realistic it is. Draft capital-wise, I don't know how much they're willing to mortgage the future, although I don't have as much of an issue like you trading away draft capital. And who's available? That's the part that we probably make.
It's tougher to answer.
I think we probably are overblowing at times the availability of certain players. Like, yeah, I would trade for McLaurin if he was available. I would, someone earlier today said the Chiefs should call the Vikings about Jordan Addison. Yeah, they're going to trade their 21st overall pick from this year that's having a great rookie season. You know what I mean? Like, we got to be realistic.
Cool if they're interested.
Yeah, but let's be realistic. Yeah. Realistic names? Maybe a Hollywood Brown.
I'm dead serious.
Maybe
you might have a better chance
Thielen.
of getting Justin Jefferson than Jordan Addison right now.
Maybe a Jerry Jeudy. Like, those at least are realistic names. I still don't think they land them. I think that's the problem I have with the trade talks.
Do you think it's funny that everyone is clamoring for the Chiefs to trade for a wide receiver and instead they're trading them away?
Maybe trading a guy that has played in 2 games away, yeah. I would still give him more of an opportunity. If they're not going to trade for anybody else, I'd actually want him still at least part of the picture. But they obviously either have something else planned, Cody, where they're trying to free up a roster spot. Yeah. Maybe that's the case if you're trying to be optimistic about it.
I wonder, that's the reason I asked the question I did, is because if you look at just in terms of knowing the track record of the Chiefs and drafting wide receivers, do you trust them evaluating a wide receiver to pick them in the first round and have them be better for Patrick Mahomes than trading that pick and maybe you trade a first and a third and you go and say, hey, Tampa Bay, we're giving you we want Mike Evans for a first-round pick and a third-round pick. I mean, is that worth it, or are you banking on them picking the right guy for the offense in round 1?
I think
first and a third is too much for Mike Evans, knowing that you also have to give him a contract extension probably to make that happen.
I think a lot of people want to say, like, Brett Veach can't draft skill position players or can't identify him because you traded for Kadarius Toney, it's not working. You drafted Sky Moore, it's not working. He signed Richie James, it didn't work. Right, whatever. I mean, but Rashee Rice is working. Some of this is you have to remember that the draft is still a numbers game and that you're not designed to hit at the rate he's been hitting at the other positions. So it makes the skill position guys look even worse. It just does. Makes those moves look worse. But he's tried like Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't a superstar, but that was a good free agent signing. Brought him in, correctly identified how they'd fit in the offense, and they won the damn Super Bowl. So I'm not so down on Veach Gold that I don't think he can't draft a wide receiver. I've told you, the thing I desperately want at wide receiver is for them to just own up one of these days and do the Julio Jones trade and trade away, trade away next year's first-round pick, put it all on the line, get up to 10, and really take a dude. Because I get tired of, let's take the 5'11" second-round wide. I get tired of that. That's the system I don't want to live in anymore.
I think the question with that is, we say that, do you trust them, if you're concerned of how they're evaluating the second-round guys, do you trust them to pick the right one in the first round? You know what I mean? That's
what I'm saying.
They got Rashee Rice, right? I mean, yes. I don't know. It's a numbers game, yes.
Yeah.
It's easier to get it right at 10, by the way. It's way easier to get wide receiver right at 10.
Yeah, but then, a lot of it 52. Requires them to mortgage the future on the draft capital because they typically are picking 28 to 32, and they've done that for 5 straight years, 28 to 32. They traded up to get Trent McDuffie, so it's not like they're never willing to trade up. That was the thing for a while. That was for a corner.
Decision.
This year, trading up possibilities, I mentioned Addison went 21 or 22. That was not – it sounded like they wanted to trade down, remember, on draft night, if anything, not trade up, and everybody thought they needed a tackle. The only thing to keep in mind, as much as you're saying it's okay to give away draft picks this year, we probably recognize they're going to have to spend a pretty high pick on another left tackle, and maybe a defensive lineman, depending on what happens with Chris Jones. I mean, this is not the
one
year.
Of those positions they're going to throw cash at. Based on the way the cash looks right now, they can solve 2 of their problems with money: wide receiver, left tackle, and defensive lineman. They can solve 2 of those with contracts, based on where they're currently set up cap-wise next season, the offseason. They can't solve all 3, so yeah, Gold. The first-round pick plan would be that third position. But if you trade a year from now, right, we're talking 2025's first, to go up and get the dude at any of those positions, honestly, if the guy you wanted at left tackle was at 10, I like the power move of getting the guy you're damn sure about is going to play for you and start day one. Just get in there and work. Like, I don't want next year, I don't want Felix Anudike-Uzomah taking a redshirt year.
I think this is probably the concern from Chiefs fans. I think you referenced what they did a couple years ago when things went south in the Super Bowl. They attacked it. They were aggressive on the O-line. Unfortunately, and look, you hope they're proactive, right? But is it going to take a catastrophic failure in the playoffs and everybody being able to clearly blame it on the wide receivers for this front office to say, okay, we're going to have that never happen again kind of attitude like they do at the O-line? Like, I'm just talking this out because I'm trying to think. As of right now, I don't believe that they would be super aggressive to do that. But would it take an AFC title game loss where we were all like, it was clearly the wide receivers? Would it take a divisional round loss where, like, wow, it was clearly the wide receivers for them to say never again?
It would have to cost him the season.
You know, exactly. So
that's why he didn't be over-aggressive with wide receiver last year. It didn't cost him anything.
Well, they won the Super Bowl. And so that's where it's like the balance of, as much as their decisions with the wide receivers in the offseason are costing them right this second, I still disagree with the notion that their quote-unquote cheap plan at wide receiver the last 2 years has backfired. They won a Super Bowl last year, so don't give me the crap that it's backfired for 2 years. You want to say right now it's backfiring for this year? Sure. Let's see how it all plays out, but sure. But don't tell me it's backfired for 2 straight years. They won a Super Bowl a year ago.
Yeah, that would be a bit rich. If you're saying 2 years, just wrong.
That's crazy.
But this year, even, it's too early to call. Like, let's say these wide receivers remain this level of mad the entire year, but they go on and win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to care. I would still like them to go get a wide receiver, so maybe life is a little bit easier on the other side. But I'm not going to freak out that the Richie James deal might not have worked just because he's now maybe working through trade scenarios. It won't matter as much that you got Sky.
And look, this is because of the struggles of the wide receiver room. You got a lot of comparisons of. You mentioned Sam Howell earlier. People are making
Russell
statistically just playing box score watching. Technically,
you're ignoring like passing yards,
of course,
and some other things. But yes,
box score watching. I think it was Colin Cowherd today had Russell Wilson this season has a 101 passer rating and Mahomes 95, and Russell Wilson has a 16-4 touchdown interception ratio. Mahomes is 15-8. Playing that game is just not telling the whole story whatsoever. No. Mahomes was bad yesterday, though. I'll tell you that. He was bad yesterday.
Very bad.
That was a bad performance, fumbles, interceptions, but
maybe one of the worst of his career.
There was a couple metrics that showed that it was. Like analytics, we pulled one up earlier today that's not, I'm not going to get into it because it's nerdy, but it was
nerdier than I like statistics?
Yes.
It's not even like VORP?
It was like defensive adjusted yards per play or something.
God. Nope, too deep.
It was way too deep, and it was the worst one of his career, though.
I don't know if this is enough for them to trade now, but I do think, just given what we've seen, real quick, the wide receiver, it has to be addressed in the offseason, whether through free agency or early pick, just based on what they've seen. With all the unrestricted guys, they're going to have some money, and I think at that point they decide, do we draft a wide receiver and pay Chris Jones? Do we pay a wide receiver like Chris Jones-Walk, and we address defensive line either some other way in free agency or in the draft as well? I think that's the decision that they're going to have to make come the offseason, whether they do something now, which is unlikely, or not.
I wonder, because they're so established and in the middle of an established run, if they wouldn't lean towards in the offseason veteran wide receiver who immediately picks it up rather than
that's where the T. Higgins name comes up.
Yeah. He's young.
Get that guy out of Cincinnati.
And he's like 25 years old, right? He's not even that old.
Get him out of Cincy.
Yeah, he's very young.
They don't respect him enough, and they don't know what they got there in Cincinnati. These Bengals fans just don't understand what T. Higgins is.
Did he have a good game yesterday?
I don't know.
Solid.
Okay.
Everybody got involved
yesterday. He's having a terrible year. That's why
Zach Taylor outcoached Kyle Shanahan yesterday. It's as good of a win as you're ever going to see.
Fair. Yeah. Kyle Shanahan now.
I was trying to decide if I could argue that, but the games were on at the same time. I have no idea how either person
What's the stat now? He's 0-37 when he's trailing by 8 or more in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. Kyle Shanahan. I mean, that is
He deflected on that thing, too.
That's nuts.
The Bengals could have won by more, too. They fumbled the ball at the 5-yard line and also missed a field goal.
That happens. That's part of every game.
That is nuts, but that's also what happens when you're the best coach at getting the most out of bad quarterbacks, but then, mediocre quarterbacks turns out in the fourth quarter, not so good.
It's definitely time for us to call it a day when we're getting texts that Mahomes should take a pay cut. With that, we'll talk to you tomorrow, craziness.
I'm out.
I'll take a deep breath. We're back at it tomorrow. Jason McCourty, former Super Bowl champ, or a Super Bowl champ, going to join us. He'll be on the call potentially this weekend, right, for NFL Network. So we'll check in with Jason McCourty.